It all begins in the 100-year Continental War, where a legendary man operated from the shadows during the final stage of the battle. That man was Riot Burger, known for mastering magical tools and slaughtering tens of thousands of enemies. In the midst of this brutal combat, he faced up close the fury of terrifying beasts that threatened the world. He fought terrible monsters with disaster-class powers that devastated everything in their path. The hero used his special chains, activating a powerful glowing magic to contain the threats. He also needed to hunt down and eliminate the evil humans who controlled those terrible creatures. Under the orders of his country, he took the life of absolutely anyone who dared to point a blade at him. But as soon as the war finally ended, the legendary warrior vanished without leaving a single clue about his whereabouts. Years later, in a quiet place, a young man catches the attention of an older man with glasses who seems very peaceful. The young man explains that he wants to train in swordsmanship and asks if the elderly man knows a good method for him to start. The older man says that is a thing for barbarians and asks the young man named Ray to go sweep the dry leaves in the backyard. Ray gets confused and asks why his grandfather says that, since he used to carry a sword himself in the past. The elderly man simply replies that everything is in the past and that nowadays he could barely lift a heavy blade. The boy laughs a lot and agrees, saying that his grandfather actually has less muscle than he does now. Ray stretches and reveals that he wanted the training to use as a reference for an important academy test. He gives a determined smile and says he found something he wants to do, but it is still a secret. The young man runs up the stairs happily while the elderly man remains standing thoughtfully at the shop counter. The grandfather realizes with some melancholy that his grandson has already grown up and is at the age to make his own way. He reflects that he needs to stay alive longer as he remembers the period when his grandson was born. Back then, he still spent all his days fighting in the midst of violent and bloody battles. The warrior faced several armored knights and eliminated his enemies with deadly precision in the arena. He kept taking lives relentlessly, even if he had to get seriously injured in the heat of combat. Fury took over him as he continued his tireless slaughter against all opponents on the field. That routine of fighting without rest for his country ended up turning the warrior into a cold combat weapon. All that violence ended up taking a terrible toll, destroying even the photo of his beloved family. A deafening noise echoes in the air as flames quickly consume everything around him. The violent fire consumes the village houses, turning the place into a true scene of destruction. The warrior arrives at the destroyed location and finds a couple lying lifeless on the ground, covered in fresh blood. He screams in utter despair and rage, wanting to know who the monster was that took their lives. In the midst of that deadly silence, a faint baby cry begins to echo, catching the warrior's attention. Protected by the bodies of his deceased parents was little Ray, crying heavily under the hot rubble. The man's gaze changes completely upon realizing that the little baby managed to survive that tragedy. He kneels on the devastated earth and takes the child into his arms with great care and emotion. The little one stretches out his delicate little hands, touching the blood-stained face of the startled, powerful warrior. The baby flashes a pure and innocent smile in the midst of that chaotic scene, bringing peace to the man's heart. Tears begin to stream down the face of the legendary warrior, who is deeply touched by that gesture. He swears to protect with his own life that orphaned child, who became the new light in his dark world. Back in the present, the elderly man walks to a locked door, determined to do what is necessary to help his grandson. He uses an old key to open the huge padlock and chains that kept the passage tightly locked. The elderly man opens the secret passage, revealing a dark staircase that leads to a mysterious basement in the mansion. At the bottom of the basement, lit by lamps, there is a mysterious figure sitting down and completely covered by a cloth. The elderly man approaches silently and pulls the cloth, revealing what had been hidden there for so long. It is a human-looking doll identical to the warrior in his days of youth in the past. He knows very well that his aging and tired body will not be able to endure much more time alive. But as long as he has that special vessel in his hands, he has a chance to continue his great mission. Suddenly, a voice from upstairs interrupts him, calling for assistance at the main entrance of his shop. The man quickly returns to the counter and greets the unknown customer, asking what he wishes to buy. The masked stranger mysteriously reveals that he is looking specifically for powerful mythical items. The elderly man is completely shocked and on high alert upon hearing such an uncommon demand from his new customer. The intruder moves at high speed, revealing that he had a lot of trouble finding the legendary Riot Burger. He shows a dagger, saying he seeks the ultimate magical tools created by the legendary assassin puppet. The intruder advances rapidly, arrogantly declaring that he will take absolutely everything in that place. He delivers a fatal blow with the intention of eliminating the elderly man and stealing all the special items at once. A large impact of blue energy flashes in the middle of the room, blocking the sudden attack of the masked enemy. The villain smiles sideways upon realizing that the old shopkeeper managed to react surprisingly well to the strike. Riot uses his secret magical tool creation ability to manifest a glowing shield out of nowhere. The shield, called the Sacred Aegis, ensures an absolute divine defense, canceling any type of damage below the limit. The experienced elder glares at the enemy seriously, wanting to know where he managed to obtain classified information. The criminal responds mockingly, warning that it does no good for the old man to keep looking at him with so much anger. He prepares to attack again, confessing that at the end of the day, he is just a henchman hired by someone else. Knowing this, the elderly man decides to go all out and activates his incredible weapon materialization power once more. A powerful explosion of blue magical energy takes over the entire tool shop, destroying the scenery. The force of the impact is so devastating that it throws the intruder away, causing him to lose his balance. A blinding magical light begins to concentrate in the elder's hands, preparing the invocation of a legendary item. He invokes the powerful sacred sword Excalibur, which increases his physical strength and magical power to the absolute limits. Holding the hilt of the mythical sword firmly, the elder warns intimidatingly that the opponent will tell him everything. He points the glowing blade, demanding to know immediately the exact location of the master behind this. The intruder admits that the pressure from the legendary warrior is impressive, but smiles as if he has an ace up his sleeve. He advances, shouting that the elderly man cannot hide the terrible weakness of his aging and worn-out body. The two trade violent attacks, and the elder begins to feel extreme fatigue weighing heavily on his weak muscles. At this critical moment, young Ray suddenly enters the shop, calling for his grandfather, and witnesses the terrifying combat. The elderly man is completely terrified to see that his beloved grandson ended up returning at the worst possible moment. The villain flashes a cruel smile while the grandfather screams in despair for the young man not to approach that danger. The intruder appears behind the boy, using the mythical item Echo of Memories, making a bell ring in a dark tone in the room. Riot runs desperately, cursing as he realizes the terrible effect that cursed bell causes on people. The masked man holds Ray by the shoulders, praising the young man's excellent body, who now has a hypnotized look. The boy draws a gold sword under the villain's command, preparing to fight coldly against his own grandfather. In a mocking tone, Ray warns that the battle might be a bit too difficult for the elder's fragile body. The boy advances at high speed, delivering a surprise attack that leaves the grandfather with no reaction in the face of the betrayal. Riot is forced to block his own grandson's blade, feeling immense pain in his heart over that situation. The elderly man knows that the magical bell has the dark power to alter memories and control people's minds. He realizes his grandson has been brainwashed and that he needs to defeat the invoker or use another extreme method. The other painful option would be to deliver a strong physical impact to Ray's head to make him wake up from the magical trance. Unable to attack the true culprit who is far away, the elder laments, having no choice but to strike his own grandson. With all his precision, he delivers a well-aimed blow to disarm and immobilize the boy without hurting him too much. He silently asks the boy for forgiveness as he prepares to deliver the necessary blow to break the spell. The elder lands the precise strike, releasing a wave of blue energy to cancel the bell's effect on Ray's mind. A curtain of dust and smoke rises into the air after the impact of the attack, dividing the fighters in the middle of the room. The young man falls unconscious near a wall while the villain mockingly says that the old man has no mercy for his family. Riot responds with a murderous gaze, stating that he knows perfectly well how to control his strength to protect his grandson. Seeing that his manipulation plan failed, the masked man retreats in anger, realizing that things have gotten difficult. Suddenly, an immense beam of golden light descends from the sky, breaking through the ceiling and surprising both fighters in the shop. In the middle of the intense glow, an imposing figure emerges, appearing to analyze the situation calmly. A female warrior in golden armor appears, saying that a mere lackey would never be a match for the legendary warrior. The masked henchman trembles with terror upon realizing the sudden arrival of that extremely powerful person. Riot sweats from nervousness as he feels the crushing pressure emanating from that new presence that just invaded the place. The elder is on maximum alert, recognizing that the bizarre energy is of a completely different level. The mysterious female warrior raises her huge golden sword, making the elderly man realize that the situation has turned terrible. As he tries to prepare for the worst, Riot's chest begins to ache intensely, as if his heart is failing. He bends over in pain, cursing for suffering a heart attack at the most dangerous moment of his life. The mysterious female warrior advances with extreme speed and delivers a powerful golden strike against the defenseless elder. Her cold, piercing gaze focuses entirely on ending that combat once and for all without hesitation. Riot tries to resist, using all the remaining strength of his legendary Excalibur sword to contain the terrible attack. He cracks the ground under the enormous pressure, but refuses to surrender even with his body tired and aged by time. The warrior shouts with determination, affirming that his mind and his combat skills will never weaken. Drops of blood begin to drip onto the cold floor, revealing the terrible physical wear and tear he is suffering there. The elderly man widens his eyes upon realizing something terrible happening right in front of him in the heat of that brutal combat. He focuses his tired vision on the terrible surprise that just emerged right behind his back in a treacherous way. Young Ray suddenly appears and stabs his own grandfather in the back, leaving the elderly man in shock. Riot spits blood and whispers his beloved grandson's name while the boy continues with that cold, lifeless gaze. Soon after, the purple smoke dissipates, and Ray's eyes return to normal, indicating that he has come out of the spell. The young man regains consciousness and sees his dear grandfather gravely injured right in front of him, without understanding what happened. He is totally shocked and confused upon realizing that it was he who injured his own grandfather with the blade in his hand. Ray looks at his own trembling hands and at the blood dripping from the sword, falling into complete despair. Even though heavily injured, the elderly man uses his last strength to deliver a wind strike and push the enemies away from there. A huge curtain of dust and smoke rises into the air after the powerful warrior's desperate attack in the arena. The young man coughs in the middle of the dust, trying to recover from the strong impact while the mist begins to lower little by little. He begins to scream desperately for his grandfather, wanting to ensure that the elder is still alive in the middle of all the chaos. Suddenly, a terrifying silhouette emerges behind the boy, coldly warning him that he is only getting in the way. Fallen on the ground without strength, the old warrior realizes with terror that his tired body can no longer move. He bleeds heavily and mentally begs for the powerful enemy not to take another single step toward his grandson. Ray positions himself protectively and warns the intruder that he will have no mercy if he dares to touch his grandfather. The female warrior just stares at him with a cold, bored look without showing any type of concern or fear. The elderly man desperately begs for the boy to flee from there, knowing very well that the young man has no chance against her. The young man swallows hard but keeps his gaze firm and determined, resolved to protect the one who always took care of him in life. The opponent with glowing golden eyes analyzes the boy's stance with disdain, preparing the final attack in a hurry. She takes a firm, heavy step forward, indicating that she will put an end to that foolishness without showing any compassion. A sadistic and cruel smile appears on the face of the female enemy, who is highly amused by the despair of those relatives. The boy gathers all his courage and advances, delivering a desperate strike with his sword against the powerful rival. The grandfather screams in complete despair upon seeing his beloved grandson throw himself directly into a suicidal attack against death. A violent slash happens in the blink of an eye, and a large amount of blood squirts cruelly into the cold air. The terrible scene is reflected in the tearful eyes of the elderly man, who watches helplessly the terrible tragedy before him. He fondly remembers his grandson's joyful smile while his own heart shatters into 1,000 pieces. The final blow is delivered with devastating violence, staining the entire place with the bright red of tragedy. The female warrior cleans her sword, while the masked henchman complains about her leaving so many clues at the location. The old warrior agonizes on the ground, dragging himself slowly with the little consciousness and life left in him. He stretches out his trembling hand toward where his grands fell, while listening to the heavy footsteps approaching him. The female rival approaches with scorn, reminding him that in the past he was the strongest of all, but today he is a failure. She raises her huge golden blade with absolute coldness to give the blow of mercy to the legendary fallen hero. A deafening sound of a slash echoes in the darkness as the terrible blade takes the life of the old warrior on the ground. In the middle of the dark void, a small blue magical flame begins to float in a mystical and mysterious way. The warrior's soul laments bitterly in the darkness for not being able to save his grandson from that terrible death. He cries upon remembering that the boy was the only light that saved him from absolute despair after losing his former family. The memories of all the happy moments he spent raising that sweet child pass before his sad mind. The image of Ray's warm smile glows intensely in the middle of that cold and lonely darkness of the afterlife. A devastating fury consumes his soul, and he solemnly swears that he will take revenge on everyone responsible for this. Suddenly, a system message warns that the final condition to awaken the secret ability has been completed. The magic power manipulation limit of the assassin puppet is released, and the soul descends to the artificial body in the basement. The system confirms that due to the awakening, the user's soul will be successfully transferred to the magical vessel. A violent red flame engulfs the artificial body, which begins to awaken with a new and devastating power. He stands up from the chair, revealing his new young form surrounded by a devastating red energy. The eyes of the new artificial body open, glowing intensely with the unshakable desire for revenge. He now inhabits the reincarnation puppet of Riot Burger, a perfect mythical item created by himself in the past. Mythical tools are the most powerful and forbidden creations, known for defying natural laws. These extraordinary magical items were all manufactured by the legendary and genius weapon artisan Riot Burger. They are forbidden tools capable of distorting and controlling the laws of time, space, and human souls themselves. An unimaginable power that would make the entire world tremble, that rulers of all kingdoms sought desperately. So, among these mythical rarities, there was a magical pipe capable of allowing the user to view visions of the future. There was also a special vehicle that functioned as magical wings, allowing one to leap freely through space. Another striking mythical creation was a glowing magical key made to open hearts and rip out hidden secrets. There was even a tuning harp designed specifically to manipulate the emotions of any person. However, the vast majority of these legendary mythical relics were completely lost in the midst of mystery. All these special items vanished without a trace, as soon as the Tartazan Riot disappeared from the map in the war. Back at the destroyed scene, the henchman complains about the orders received not to leave any witness alive. He grumbles that his partner's dramatic entrance caused a lot of mess, and will take an immense amount of work to clean up. Holding a precious pendant, the henchman mockingly says that at least he deserves to keep that valuable reward. The protagonist, now reborn in his reincarnation puppet, vows to put an end to the criminal's cruel plans. He reveals that he created that vessel only to continue taking care of his grandson, but that the scum destroyed his peace. Using his power, he manifests a huge and terrifying cleaver called Guillotine, the blood-stained blade. Overtaken by a deep hatred, he coldly repeats that the monsters made the worst mistake by attacking an innocent child. The reborn man advances at high speed to punish the enemy, warning that every cowardly act has its proper consequence. The masked henchman notices the deadly danger coming in his direction and tries to react desperately without success. The powerful blow cuts through the air with extreme precision and force, delivering a fatal attack against the startled intruder. The protagonist stares at the adversary coldly, promising to make the miserable wretch pay for all the pain he caused in the village. Silence and cold mist take over the desolate valley, surrounded by abandoned buildings and wooden rubble. The hero uses a shovel to dig a decent grave in the dirt, paying his last respects at that sad location. Riot closes his aching eyes as he whispers his grandson's name, suffering greatly from the untimely loss of his dear boy. He remembers when little Ray ran happily through the forest, calling for him with a beautiful, pure smile. Another sweet memory arises with the boy having dinner and playfully complaining about the old man's jokes at the table. He also remembers when the boy, having trouble sleeping, would look for his grandfather in the middle of the night, asking for affection, up until reaching the recent moment when the young man enthusiastically confided that he had found a great secret life goal. The protagonist sighs deeply, keeping all that precious pain deep inside his now immortal chest. He bitterly laments the fact that he never had the chance to hear what his grandson's true life dream was. He focuses his hatred on the mysterious female warrior blamed for the tragedy, known only by the codename The Client. With eyes glowing in pure fury, he swears to track down that murderous mastermind and make her pay with her own life. In addition to revenge, he needs to recover the stolen mythical items. Using the pendant the henchman left behind as a clue, the hero analyzes the mysterious pendant and recognizes the symbol as belonging to the dangerous and secretive Yugen tribe. Activating his creation ability, he invokes the stellar compass, capable of reading information from objects and finding owners. He knows that if he tracks the tribe's clues one by one, he will finally manage to discover the client's location. The mythical artifact points a direct route on the map, making the hero decide that he will attack their secret base first. He arrives at the indicated location and observes the entrance to the hidden fortress, knowing he is in the right place of his hunt. That isolated tribe possesses incredible dark techniques that make their assassins feared throughout the continent. They use the terrible soul reading to extract memories from corpses, serving as an espionage unit in the war. The warrior walks firmly across the bridge that gives access to the feared Valley of Bones, the hidden village of that dangerous tribe. He reflects that he acted discreetly for years, making it almost impossible for any old comrade to track him down. But knowing that the assassins are from the Yugen clan, everything changes because they hunt and eliminate anyone who crosses their path. They eliminate targets and rip memories out of bodies until they manage to find any clue that leads back to the hero. While walking thoughtfully, the protagonist is surprised by a sharp sword pointed directly at his neck. The masked lookout warns that only members of the clan know that hidden place and demands to know who he really is. Several hooded warriors emerge from the shadows, surrounding the hero and threatening to end him if he does not answer soon. The protagonist stares at the lookout with disdain, asking if he really thinks an intruder would answer politely. The masked guard loses his patience immediately and orders the others to eliminate him without giving another single chance. Several enemies attack at once, but Riot moves quickly, blocking all blows in a brilliant manner. One of the guards is completely in shock upon realizing the absurd speed and agility of that mysterious intruder. A strong counterattack makes the ground shake, scattering stones and dust all over the entrance of that dangerous fortress. The guards retreat terrified upon noticing that their sharp weapons simply broke on contact with the hero. Unable to use blades, the assassins decide to resort to their powers and launch destructive spells in his direction. They fire purple magical blasts, shouting that they will identify the intruder by whatever is left of his destroyed body. A large cloud of smoke forms after the devastating impact, temporarily hiding the result of the attack. In the middle of the dust, the protagonist comes walking out calmly and cleans his shoulder without having suffered absolutely any damage. The men of the clan fall into despair and scream, asking if that mysterious young man is some kind of immortal monster. Riot coldly states that they must have mercilessly hunted every person who dared to cross his path in the past. He asks with a dark look how many innocent lives they took just to extract memories from the corpses. The trembling lookout tells him to shut his mouth, while the hero activates his special magical weapon creation ability. He invokes the terrible Iron Maiden, a mythical medieval torture instrument made of pure steel to crush rivals. The hero says coldly that the only thing he really wants to hear coming from the mouths of those assassins is their screams. One of the guards is locked by force inside the mythical instrument and begins to scream in pain upon feeling the iron spikes. Blood begins to ooze through the slits in the metal, revealing the terrible fate of those who dared to defy the hero. The room becomes filled with these blood-stained iron structures while the protagonist advances without looking back. The blood of the defeated enemies spreads across the stone floor, confirming the relentless elimination of all the lookouts. Later, one of the assassins who had fainted during the combat begins to regain consciousness with difficulty. He looks around and panics upon realizing that all his clan companions were brutally slaughtered. Riot appears before him, warning that he spared only his life, and the trembling survivor asks what he wants from there. The protagonist draws a glowing dagger, warning that the prisoner only needs to answer what he knows to avoid pain. With red eyes of pure hatred, he places the blade against the man's neck, demanding to know where the mastermind client is. After the interrogation, the clan man appears tied to a chair, totally blood-stained after suffering torture. The hero realizes that the prisoner really knew nothing useful, and laments that the clue turned out to be a dead end. He searches every corner of the enemy base, and the only thing of value he finds is an old document with a list of clients. In the darkness of the basement, the protagonist analyzes in detail the old papers kept among the wooden boxes. The list shows names of important officials and wealthy merchants, but he notices that some pages were ripped out from there. He gives an irritated sigh, deducing that the culprit was very cautious in destroying the information that would reveal their name. The hero reflects that the mastermind's strength and cunning indicate that they must be a well-positioned S-class adventurer in the kingdom. He also recalls the provocative words that the female warrior said, revealing that she knew his old reputation as a fighter. This makes the hero conclude seriously that the mysterious mastermind was certainly someone who knew him at the time of the Great War. But he decides not to jump to conclusions, knowing he needs to obtain many more clues before acting against the rival. He continues flipping through the list of clients until suddenly he comes across a surprising name that catches his attention. With that unexpected discovery, the protagonist immediately decides what his next hunting destination will be. The document reveals the identity and face of a well-dressed man who will be the next target of the experienced warrior. He knows that to get more clues about the mastermind client, he will need to interrogate people connected to the criminal. And to obtain that secret information, the only viable path at the moment is to go after that man on the sheet of paper. The scene changes to a beautiful city with red roofs, where the assassin puppet will continue his relentless journey of revenge. The protagonist walks peacefully toward the immense mansion where his new target from the secret document resides. He stops before the gate of the luxurious residence, analyzing the mansion's security before invading the place in silence. His firm and silent steps echo through the empty corridors of the mansion as he searches for the main room. The hero enters a well-decorated office, observing the empty work desk in search of any useful clue. He notices a beautiful picture frame with the photo of a happy family positioned right on top of the dark wood furniture. Suddenly, a man with glasses tries to strike him from behind with extreme force, but Riot manages to dodge without difficulty. The hero widens his eyes upon realizing something surprising and familiar in his new attacker's combat stance. The two trade quick and precise blows in the middle of the office, causing a strong wave of wind that scatters papers. The man with glasses retreats after the exchange of attacks and asks with suspicion who that mysterious young intruder is. The man with glasses asks in surprise why the mysterious young intruder looks so much like his old comrade. Riot comments ironically that that is a rather cold reception for people who haven't seen each other in so long. He adds by saying that they are old friends and that receiving a warm embrace would be much better at that moment. The man activates his special iron arm technique and delivers a violent charge against the protagonist. The impact of the blow generates a strong whirlwind of wind and dust that destroys part of the office decoration. The force of the clash between the two fighters is so intense that it completely shatters the glass window of the mansion. The attacker steps back and glares at him with suspicion, demanding that he speak immediately who he really is. Riot just adjusts his posture calmly and asks the reason why he is attacking an old friend with so much fury. The man shouts angrily, telling him to shut up, and advances again, delivering another powerful punch in his direction. The protagonist reflects in silence whether his old comrade is truly incapable of recognizing his physical presence. He dodges each charge without making an effort, demonstrating that his agility in combat remains flawless. The man with glasses is shocked upon recognizing the perfect evasive movements that belong to his old leader. The hero takes a firm step forward, calmly affirming that he had already warned about who he really was. He glares at him closely, reaffirming with authority that he is the same Riot who fought by his side in the past Great War. To prove his identity, he delivers a precise kick, complaining about how many times he will have to repeat the same thing. The blow throws the man with force against the office floor, opening a crater and destroying the mansion's flooring. Groaning in pain, he tries to stand up from the rubble, feeling the full weight of that absurd impact in his muscles. Riot observes the fallen companion and admits with an amused tone that he ended up exaggerating a bit on the counterattack's strength. The injured man finally accepts reality and admits in shock that the intruder is truly the legendary war hero. The old war companion named Lit Brown rubs his forehead relieved, but still confused by the bizarre situation. The protagonist takes a sip of tea peacefully, pretending to be hurt because his friend took so long to recognize him. He jokes about the other man's aging, but Lit fires back saying that nobody usually grows younger overnight. The friend also complains about the previous punch, pointing out that the blow was stronger than what Riot delivered in his physical peak. The hero reveals naturally that it is all thanks to magical tools and that he expected him to notice the technique. Lit Brown settles into the armchair and comments that those times of combat in the Royal Army are in the distant past. He sighs, remembering that after the end of the war, everything changed in the world, and that he resolved to vanish from great battles. The friend explains that people finally stopped fighting and now focus on rebuilding their lives in times of peace. Open-air markets have filled up again, and children can now run free through peaceful marketplaces without the threat of war. He says that he also started a family and that nowadays he is a great merchant who leads local trade networks. Riot praises that great career change of his former soldier, and the friend agrees, proud of his achievement. Next, Lit asks what his old leader is plotting by suddenly appearing with that same young appearance. The protagonist lowers his gaze with sadness as he prepares to tell the terrible reason for his return to combat. He reveals in a low voice that he had also become a grandfather before suffering the worst tragedy of his long existence. He warns that the story is long and asks if his old companion is willing to listen to everything with close attention. Silence takes over the reading room as the tragic story of his grandson Ray's death is revealed to the friend. After listening to the entire terrible truth, the merchant holds his teacup with seriousness, lamenting what occurred. He drinks a sip of tea and confesses with sincere sorrow that his old commander went through a true hell on earth. He deduces that Riot found his name on the Yugen tribe's secret list, and that is why he resolved to go look for him at his mansion. The hero smiles sideways, commenting that he never imagined his old partner would be involved with that tribe of criminals. Lit Brown justifies himself saying that the business world has complications and asks what his friend plans to do next. The protagonist clenches his fist firmly, declaring that his final decision has already been made and there is no turning back. With a gaze glowing in pure hatred, he states coldly that his sole objective now is to get his revenge. Lit Brown takes a reflective pause and asks if a violent slaughter would truly be what little Ray would wish for. The hero gives an enigmatic smile, responding that nobody knows what the deceased would want, but he cannot hesitate. He affirms that evil acts demand punishment and that this bloody revenge is his way of taking responsibility. He adds by telling his friend that all that violent hunt is not motivated solely by his grandson's tragic death. The hero reminds him that the legendary mythical tools were stolen and that if they fall into the wrong hands, it will cause chaos. He explains that the entire world could easily be destroyed if the villains use the power of those war relics. The friend agrees with the gravity of the situation and asks if the main plan is to hunt down and eliminate that secret female mastermind. The hero confirms his objective and asks his friend for help, who accepts on the spot, asking what supplies he needs to obtain. Riot hands over a folded sheet containing a detailed list of rare materials that he needs urgently. He reveals that he is going to forge a new and powerful magical tool, specifically to defeat that cursed female mastermind. The merchant analyzes the paper seriously and agrees to use his vast trade network to get the pieces. Next, Lit Brown warns that there is one more extremely important detail that his friend needs to keep in mind. He reminds him that Riot was well connected in the underworld and asks if he knows how to enter the feared Dark Guild of Spies. The meeting location is known as the Board of Ruin, hidden inside the Grand Kubrick Library in the capital. The capital's huge public archive serves only as a peaceful facade to hide the dark secrets of the underworld. The true purpose of that old building is to hide the secret passage that leads directly to the assassin's headquarters. The protagonist walks calmly between the wooden shelves, looking for the specific volumes on the dark bookshelf. He begins to pull and move the books in the correct order to activate the stone wall's secret opening mechanism. A loud mechanical noise echoes through the silent room of the library, indicating that the secret passage has been unlocked. A gap opens in the wall, revealing a dark underground staircase that leads directly to the depths of the guild. He walks down the spiral stairs lit by torches with total tranquility, without caring about hidden dangers. The hero observes the immense underground environment that begins to reveal itself before his eyes after the silent descent. He arrives at the grand hall of the Round's Dark Guild, surrounded by imposing decorations of pure bluish and mysterious magic. Suddenly, an immense muscular warrior leaps from above, delivering a violent surprise attack in the direction of his head. A red and destructive shockwave arises with the impact, but the protagonist manages to dodge the blow with ease. He holds the enemy's spiked weapon with one hand, commenting on that violent and unnecessary reception. The attacker introduces himself as Randold and warns smilingly that things in the underworld always work in a brutal way. The muscular warrior cheerfully greets the guild receptionist, as if that violence were an everyday thing. The smiling Mina attends to both, warning that absolutely all jobs offered in the guild are of extreme danger. She warns that entering without determination will cause useless deaths, and that cleaning the mess of bodies costs a lot of money. Upon being asked if he truly wants to register in the guild, the hero confirms, saying that is exactly why he came. The receptionist warns that he will take an admission test and asks him to choose the code name he will use on missions. He reflects in silence that he needs a totally new name to avoid being tracked by his old code names. The hero seeks an identity that will help him in his hunt for revenge, and that represents his true purpose for fighting. The protagonist's gaze glows intensely with a firm decision made deep inside his determined heart. He opens an enigmatic smile, confirming that he has finally chosen the perfect codename for his journey of revenge. He asks to be registered under the name of Ray, paying a final tribute to the memory of his dear and beloved grandson. The receptionist calls him Mr. Ray, and warns that the official registration test will begin at that exact moment in the hall. The protagonist calmly asks about the details of the test, and the girl just confirms with a joyful smile on her face. She opens a huge decorated iron door and asks for both to accompany her while explaining the rules on the way. Mina explains that just like in the Ordinary Adventurers Guild, they classify all missions by difficulty levels. She shows that there are 7 ranks and warns that even the lowest F-level missions carry a real risk of death. The hero understands that the test serves as a screening to keep only the strongest fighters and keep the guild's level high. The receptionist cheerfully agrees, saying that they cannot trust amateurs because there they manage serious business. The hero reflects that it is sad to see that business based on taking lives still prospers even in times of peace in the world. While walking down the stairs, Randold strikes up a conversation, asking if the protagonist will also take the terrible admission exam. The hulking warrior smiles, saying yes, because in the guild he is paid to do whatever dirty work he desires. He looks at his own trembling hand, terrifyingly confessing that he loves choosing missions where he can kill freely. The Hulk makes an insane expression of pure sadism, saying that just imagining the combat makes his entire body shiver. Mina comments with total naturalness that the guild stays full of bloodthirsty and violent warriors like that man. The group finally reaches the end of the descent, and the hero observes with attention the location prepared for the test. It is a huge circular underground arena, known by everyone as the Pit of Cursed Offerings. The friendly receptionist warns that the exam will begin immediately and asks the candidates to walk down the arena steps. The protagonist walks to the edge of the stone pit, calmly observing the dark structure where the combat will take place. He enters the arena along with the other candidates, who seem nervous while awaiting the start of the combat evaluation. Positioned on the upper part of the pit, Mina shouts in an animated way, asking if all the warriors are ready yet. One of the Hulks roars in anger, telling her to start the test already, and threatens to eliminate the first opponent who crosses his path. The protagonist just observes with disdain that exaggerated impatience and comments on the opponent's short temper. The receptionist asks with a huge smile for all the warriors to look attentively down at their feet. The competitors look intrigued at the ground, without understanding what the true surprise reserved for that moment is. Suddenly, a glowing rift arises, dividing the arena floor in half and startling all the fighters inside. The ground begins to open, revealing a huge sea of boiling lava bubbling right below everyone's feet in the arena. The unbearable heat begins to rise rapidly, making the warriors sweat from nervousness in the face of that deadly danger. She explains animatedly that over time the ground will retract completely into the walls, and the only way to survive is. At that instant, several heavy chains begin to descend from the ceiling, catching the experienced protagonist's attention. Mina warns that as soon as the ground vanishes completely, whoever is still alive and hanging will be considered passed on the test. The receptionist waves cheerfully, wishing good luck to everyone, and asking them to give their best to survive. The men begin to complain desperately, saying that the chains are too high and that it is impossible to reach them. A mage with glasses celebrates arrogantly, saying that the air is his perfect territory to shine and pass the test. He uses his special airwalking technique to float upward toward the chains with enormous ease. Another competitor roars in anger, cursing the mage for trying to get ahead and pass the test by cheating the other rivals. The mage laughs mockingly as he stretches out his hand to grab the first metal chain hanging from the ceiling. A warrior with a bandana smiles wickedly, raising his finger and warning that he would never allow that easy cheating. He activates his secret vector alteration ability to change the direction of the physical forces around him. Under the spell's effect, the mage completely loses control of his body and begins to plunge toward the burning lava. The man with glasses screams in complete despair upon realizing he is falling straight into the terrible fire pit below. He falls headfirst into the boiling sea of lava, being completely consumed by the deadly flames in a tragic instant. The cheater laughs out loud, warning that trying to save oneself alone was a very naive attitude of that arrogant mage. Randold roars with laughter in an insane way, shouting that just surviving by hanging would be way too boring and tedious. He begins to spin his heavy weapon, promising to assassinate absolutely everyone until only he is left as passed. The competitors tremble with hatred upon realizing that the test was planned specifically for everyone to kill each other. A violent free-for-all battle begins in the pit, with the warriors attacking each other mercilessly in the middle of smoke and chaos. The protagonist remains standing with crossed arms, watching that brutal carnage happen around him. He reflects in silence whether that bloody admission test truly comes down to a simple, meaningless slaughter. In the middle of the confusion, the men keep running and dueling in a wild way, trying to secure their space for survival. Randold approaches the hero, complaining about his calm posture and telling him to stop acting like he is superior. He challenges the protagonist, calling him to a fun fight, while the hero remains standing without showing fear. Riot responds with extreme coldness, telling the Hulk not to bother, as he wouldn't last even 3 seconds in combat. The giant roars in fury, but the hero warns that he should focus on how he truly intends to survive the test. He points to the ceiling, explaining that even if he kills everyone there, it will be useless if he cannot reach the chains. The giant stops for a thoughtful moment and admits, reluctantly, that the young fellow is actually right about the danger. He then looks to the side with a wicked smile, planning a cruel alternative to manage to climb to the ceiling. The giant grabs a smaller warrior by the hair and throws him with all his strength upward as if he were an object. The thrown man manages to grab hold desperately of the metal chain, relieved not to have fallen into the lava. Suddenly, the chains begin to glow in a boiling red-orange tone, burning the skin of whoever holds them. The warrior screams in agony upon feeling his hands fry on the metal overheated by the hellish heat coming from below. Unable to endure the unbearable pain, he lets go of the chain and begins to plummet straight toward the lava pit. Randold laughs out loud, commenting that that was a close call and complains that the hero almost convinced him to climb the wrong way. The unfortunate wretch plummets into the fire pit, while the warriors realize that the chains are too hot to hold. The giant observes the chaos around with mockery, affirming that now that he has understood the test's trick, everything has become easy. Another fighter in the arena is left in complete shock upon being grabbed by surprise by the terrifying, hulking warrior. The giant holds the trembling opponent's head with violence, demonstrating his absurd and merciless physical strength. The prisoner tries to break free desperately, but realizes he is totally trapped in Randold's deadly grip. The giant begins to use the bodies of the other fighters as support and rungs of a human ladder to climb in the arena. He crushes and suffocates the competitors without any mercy, while they scream in pain under his devastating force. From up there, the receptionist observes that bizarre scene with amusement, commenting that his method is quite bold. The Hulk smiles sadistically, mockingly thanking the men for serving as support for his climb. The protagonist observes that deplorable scene with a look of deep contempt, thinking about what a piece of scum that man is. Randold provokes the protagonist, saying that the ground is about to vanish completely, and calls him to climb up already. The big guy flashes a cruel smile upon noticing that all the other participants in the arena have already fallen into the sea of lava. The hero silently observes the scene of destruction while the warriors' bodies are burned in the boiling lava. He repeats the word sacrifices, intrigued by the merciless method that the Hulk used to manage to climb up there. The protagonist advances quickly, affirming with disdain that he does not need anyone else's life to reach the top. Randold is completely shocked upon being caught by surprise by an agile attack coming directly from above him. The young hero leans with ease on the Hulk's head while holding firmly onto the boiling chain. He reveals with a serious look that his artificial puppet body is immune and simply feels no heat at all. The scene changes to the main square in front of the grand headquarters of the kingdom's prestigious Order of Knights. The citizens talk highly animatedly about finally having the chance to see the legendary hero known as the Star of the Sword. People comment with great admiration on the absurd strength of the greatest knight in the entire royal dynasty. The crowd feels totally secure knowing that the protection of the entire empire is in the hands of that legendary hero. A woman in the square screams, pointing to the entrance of the grand royal palace, catching everyone's attention around. The crowd goes into complete delirium, celebrating the warrior's return with petals and many cheers of celebration. The knight closes his eyes slowly, maintaining a calm posture in the middle of all that noisy celebration. The hero known as Sir Haste appears imposing, wearing his beautiful armor in the middle of the grand hall. Back at the lava pit, the protagonist continues holding firmly onto the iron chain without suffering any burns. On the balcony above, the observers shout in surprise upon seeing the ease with which the young intruder passed the test. The examiners comment laughing that that new candidate is incredibly interesting and livened up the test quite a bit. But the protagonist knows that that is just the beginning of his journey to unmask the guild's leaders. The black-haired woman comments with a cruel smile that there has not been enough blood spilled in the arena yet. Randold roars in anger and humiliation, demanding that the boy take his foot off his face immediately. Riot just gives a mocking smile and thanks him for serving as an excellent step for his climb. The hero leaps, propelling his body upward, and kicks the big guy with force, causing him to plummet heavily. The receptionist congratulates the survivors for the good work while the hero walks back to the main hall. She announces that the only ones passed on the admission test were the protagonist and the gigantic, enraged warrior. The girl hands over the papers and warns that she will officialize his registration to start operating as a member of Rank F. She explains with a joyful smile that both the new assassins and the received missions are divided by ranks. She shows the rank chart, revealing that he will need to complete several contracts to step up in level gradually. The hero thinks the system is simple, but she warns that even the lowest tasks involve a serious risk to life. The receptionist complains about how many give up halfway, leaving an immense amount of work for the guild to clean up. She explains that the members of the highest ranks are relentless warriors who have already survived extreme dangers. These war veterans are known for carrying vast experience and coldness in all their assassinations. She adds by saying that reaching rank S gives the right to access the most protected secrets and archives of the entire guild. This valuable access grants permission to enter the legendary library of confidential archives of the underworld. She encourages the protagonist to climb to the top to secure highly lucrative and highly important missions. Riot realizes that that library is exactly the source he needs to access to discover his rival's identity. The protagonist goes straight to the point and asks what the fastest way is to reach the highly desired rank S. Suddenly, the young man with a braid emerges from behind, mockingly responding that the only fast way is by killing many people. The girl is left in a state of shock and stammers upon recognizing the presence of that mysterious boy at the location. She whispers terrified, revealing that the young prodigy has already been officially approved to be promoted to rank S. The young man introduces himself as Gaia and proudly flaunts the position of absolute leader of the guild's entire rank A. The protagonist stares at him with seriousness, realizing he is before one of the organization's most lethal warriors. She says that the small assassin entered the guild at only 5 years old and has already eliminated tens of thousands of targets. Gaia walks by his side with a friendly tone, asking if the hero also has as a great goal to climb to rank S. The boy suddenly changes to a terrifying expression and warns with disdain that that is never going to happen for him. He points out that during the entire practical test, the protagonist simply stood still watching the massacre without fighting. The prodigy stares at him with a dark look, reinforcing that the hero was not capable of taking the life of a single competitor there. He leans very close to the protagonist, mockingly saying that he can perfectly smell him. The young prodigy ends the conversation by whispering that the hero exhales an unbearable smell of fake virtue. The hero mentally repeats the boy's words, trying to understand what he meant by that fake virtue. The young assassin questions what the logic would be in leaving alive people who might try to take revenge in the future. He reluctantly admits that the protagonist truly possesses great physical combat and evasion skills. With a psychopathic look, the boy affirms that the only true way to win is by annihilating rivals completely. The hero just listens to that child's insane speech in silence, maintaining his completely indifferent gaze. The assassin says that the underground guild was made only for people who love to see the blood of their targets squirt. He warns in a threatening tone that acting with so much mercy in the arena will end up costing the hero's own life. Instead of being intimidated by that provocation, the protagonist lets out a sarcastic laugh right in the boy's face. The young prodigy gets irritated, asking what is so funny, while the receptionist just observes. The protagonist places his hand on the boy's shoulder in a friendly way, pretending to be touched by that attitude. He mockingly says that his heart feels very warm to see the future rank S worry so much about his well-being. The young prodigy widens his eyes and grinds his teeth in pure fury for being treated in that insolent way. The hero steps back, saying that he appreciates the advice, but that he has no time to waste on children's games. The protagonist adds by coldly saying that if eliminating the boy guaranteed his immediate promotion to rank S, he would not hesitate to rip off that arrogant boy's head right there, and in that very same millisecond. The young man slaps the hero's hand away, shouting with revulsion for him never to dare to touch him that way again. Overtaken by hatred, he shouts, asking if the hero really thinks he can kill him after passing a simple test. The prodigy roars furiously, saying that a mere newcomer of rank F is already getting way too proud and arrogant for his taste. He activates his power, transforming into a wild beast, and warns that the opponent wouldn't last 10 seconds in combat. The protagonist just raises his left hand with total tranquility, manifesting a powerful blue magical energy. The Hulk Randold suddenly emerges in the middle of the two, saying not to make battle plans without including him. He grabs the hero by the collar with a lot of anger and roars, affirming that he will be the first to crush and take his life. The protagonist just stares at him with a bored look and coldly tells the Hulk not to waste his time. He adds by saying that after passing away, the Hulk will not manage to have time even to repent. The Hulk becomes blind with fury at that bold answer and roars, asking what the boy just said. The giant places his huge hand on the hero's head, threatening to crush his skull right there before everyone. He brags about his reputation as a merciless killer, promising to destroy that young and handsome face in a single second. The hero gives just a sigh of fatigue, showing that he has not the slightest patience to endure that type of scum. Suddenly, the Hulk widens his eyes upon realizing bright and sharp wires closing around his body. The protagonist activates with precision his legendary magical creation ability to invoke a new and lethal trap. He materializes special iron stakes, joined by a super sharp vibrating wire capable of cutting anything. The Hulk screams in terror upon seeing the sharp red lines begin to slice his skin without getting a chance for defense. The Hulk's blood squirts violently across the walls of the underground arena, leaving the examiners surprised. The pieces of the giant's body fall lifeless onto the arena floor, confirming the sudden and tragic end of the criminal. Gaia advances with absurd speed, disdainfully affirming that the hero defeated just any random failure. The Beast Boy tries to deliver a powerful strike with his sharp claws, warning the opponent not to brag too much. The protagonist dodges with ease and ironically praises that young man's flawless strength and speed. But with a calm look, he begins to manifest another one of his incredible glowing magical items in his hands. He invokes the Scarlet Whip and points out that the boy's great mistake is always attacking in a straight line and without thinking. The young prodigy is hit full-on by the whip of energy, completely losing control of his rapid advance. He manages to land on the ground, snarling with hatred, and shouts, affirming that a weak blow like that means nothing. The hero appears right behind him with a glowing shield, commenting that he already expected that proud reaction. An immense barrier of blue energy manifests, blocking the beast's violent charge with extreme perfection. The impact of the magical barrier generates a huge bluish shockwave, pushing the young assassin very far away. The prodigy scrapes his claws on the ground, trying to stabilize himself, while cursing the newcomer's unexpected power. The protagonist glares at him with total serenity, observing that the small boy is truly quite persistent. With a terrifying smile, the beast roars that his true strength is of a level completely out of the ordinary around there. From up there, the beautiful female examiner observes the combat shocked, recognizing the legendary item creation ability. She focuses her vision on the protagonist, realizing with terror that that identical fighting style belongs to another person. The boy throws himself from the arena wall with everything in a final attack, shouting that he will prove his true power. The young man leaps at high speed, delivering several strikes in the air while trying to break the hero's magical barrier. Riot calmly observes the small assassin's impressive agility and notices that he has become even faster. The boy moves like a purple blur, trying to surprise the protagonist from behind with his crushing speed. With a sadistic smile, he roars, saying that he finally managed to find a perfect opening in the opponent's defense. But the hero reacts in a fraction of a second, activating his blue shield to block the boy's violent physical attack. The protagonist stares at him very closely and serenely comments that he still has a lot to learn in life. He warns with authority that he will personally prove how there will always exist someone much stronger than him in the world. The examiner observes the hero's precise movements and begins to seriously suspect his true identity. Instead of retreating, the boy opens an even more insane smile, praising his opponent's devastating strength in the arena. He does a flip in the air, shouting that now he has an uncontrollable desire to slice the protagonist's body. The hero just coldly warns that acting with such an arrogant and wild temper will make him die very young. Gaia roars, telling the adversary to shut his mouth, and delivers a kick loaded with energy against the glowing barrier. He advances with sharp claws, declaring with a lot of hatred that he detests intrusive people who try to give him lessons. The violent impact of his claws breaks the stone ground, raising dust and pieces of rock all over the scene. The young assassin retreats, taking a flip backward, while the hero continues firm behind his shield of light. The protagonist extends his arm, releasing a blast of bluish energy to repel the opponent once and for all. The force of the attack throws the boy with extreme violence against the ground, generating an immense crater in the dark arena. Even after suffering that brutal impact, the boy stands up, cackling in a terrifying way in the middle of the dust. The hero adjusts his combat stance and challenges the young man to fight for real to see if he truly has any value. The two warriors clash at high speed, causing a flash of light and releasing an immense magical pressure. Suddenly, the immense silhouette of a giant purple snake emerges behind them, abruptly interrupting the combat. The beautiful female examiner introduces herself officially as Noise Hamon and warns them not to get too carried away in the arena. The boy roars furiously, telling the woman not to meddle because that new warrior is exclusively his prey. She glares at him with an icy look and magical glitter, intimidatingly commenting that he is a rebellious child. The giant snake's tail hits the boy full on, throwing his body against the wall in a relentless punishment. Noise just smiles sweetly, warning that he should listen with attention and respect when elders speak. The young prodigy groaned in pain on the ground, totally infuriated for being interrupted in such a humiliating manner. The boy shouts for her to stop treating people like toys, while channeling his aura to heal his wounds. The protagonist observes that scene, astonished upon realizing the opponent's impressive regeneration ability. He looks at the bizarre duo in front of him, seriously wondering if those two monsters are still human. The beautiful woman-friendly suggests that the hero also put away his magical weapons if he wants to get out of there alive today. The protagonist deactivates his power, aware that that woman is much more dangerous than the boy he faced. She takes a few elegant steps in the hero's direction, mischievously asking if he by chance is interested in. Noise whispers in his ear, asking if his true objective is to obtain access to the guild's secret library. She affirms that that is the only reason for someone to have so much obsession with rank S, and offers help in exchange for obedience. The hero glares at her with suspicion, wanting to know immediately what the true intention is behind that fishy offer. She explains that she possesses her own secret plans and that she needs a strong and obedient warrior to carry them out. The beautiful woman embraces him from behind in a provocative way, praising the protagonist for being young, strong, and very handsome. She whispers very closely, saying that she needs specifically someone with his same extraordinary characteristics. The hero coldly steps away, commenting that the proposal even seems good, but that the price charged is too high and dangerous. She turns around smiling and warns that if he refuses, she will do everything to get in the way of all his steps from now on. The female examiner calls the boy to leave while the young prodigy complains about receiving orders all the time. Gaia points in the protagonist's direction, solemnly swearing that he will be the sole person responsible for taking his life in the future. The hero reflects that that entire situation became very annoying, but keeps his revenge plan firm in his mind. He swears to himself that he will destroy absolutely any obstacle in his path to accelerate his great revenge. A week passes, and the scene shows the protagonist standing in the middle of a grand temple surrounded by immense blue energy. The guild receptionist shouts, completely shocked, unable to believe the news she just received from him. She looks at a colossal pile of documents of completed missions, while the hero just confirms in silence. He delivers the last sheets, calmly affirming that he successfully finalized absolutely all the contracts sent. The girl trembles from nervousness, commenting that normally a common assassin would take at least 2 years to do all that. He reflects in silence, that speed would be impossible for any common human being in that world. But since the hero inhabits an artificial puppet body, he is immune to fatigue and does not need to eat or sleep. She checks the flawless reports and guarantees that with that success rate, he will be promoted to rank D on the spot. He asks what the next step is, and she explains that from rank C onward, he will need special recommendations. But she reveals that the hero has already received a direct recommendation from the powerful Noise Hamelm in a total surprise. The girl hands over a sealed envelope, warning that he also received a special, exclusive assassination contract. Upon opening the letter, the hero reads that the objective is to eliminate specifically an adventurer classified as rank D. The receptionist comments that that recommendation is something unbelievable, and the hero asks if it is truly so uncommon. She confirms, saying that Noise is simply the leader of the most powerful and influential faction in the entire Dark Guild. The girl adds by saying that the last person recruited personally by her was the feared prodigy boy Gaia. The protagonist remembers the conversation with the female villain and realizes that she is playing a well-planned game from the shadows. He wonders what her true objective is in trying to gather so many skilled subordinates around her. He analyzes the small card with a lip print that brings written the enigmatic and provocative phrase, "kiss or bite." He repeats the enigma thoughtfully, trying to decipher the real meaning of that hidden message left in the envelope. The scene changes to the outside of a beautiful medieval palace under a sunny blue sky full of white clouds. Inside the hall, several armored adventurers talk animatedly, drinking and organizing their equipment. The hero observes the busy place in silence, confirming that that is the meeting point marked in the letter. He walks through the busy hall of the official Adventurers Guild, disguised so as not to draw unwanted attention. Suddenly, a well-dressed and smiling young blonde man waves cheerfully to the protagonist in the middle of the crowd. The blonde approaches, asking if he is the adventurer Ray, and the hero just confirms with a calm nod of his head. He introduces himself as Alexis Sleen, the skilled swordsman leader of the group of adventurers known as the Steel Wings. The two exchange a friendly handshake, and the protagonist pretends to be just an inexperienced newcomer seeking advice. The leader smiles, saying he is relieved because adventurers with the magic pouch skill are extremely rare. The protagonist smiles back, pretending to agree while planning his next steps to complete his mission. The magic pouch skill is coveted for allowing one to store an immense amount of cargo in a dimensional space. In reality, the hero uses one of his mythical storage tools to perfectly replicate that effect. He intends to use the novice porter disguise to get close to the target without raising absolutely any suspicion. The blonde leader turns around with enthusiasm to introduce the other members who complete the exploration group. He introduces the sweet cleric Carisha as the healer and the grumpy young Ayn as the person responsible for ambushes. The cleric Carisha Noir just averts her gaze in silence with a shy and thoughtful expression before the hero. The young thief Ayn Bot grumbles with contempt, warning that he has not the slightest interest in making friends with a newcomer. He warnings with disdain that he just wants to finish the mission quickly, take the reward money, and break up that group. The blonde leader tries to calm things down, embracing his irritated companion and asking for everyone to try to get along. Ayn loses his patience for good and grabs a heavy flower vase that was decorating the wooden table on the side. In a fit of rage, he throws the vase, breaking it over the leader's head, and shouts, telling him never to touch him. The cleric gets startled while the leader tries to shrug off the blow, laughing and asking for forgiveness for his lack of awareness. The protagonist observes that deplorable scene, thinking that that is by far the group with the worst chemistry he has ever seen. He reflects that he does not know what the terrible reason was that led someone to order that young blonde leader's death, but he focuses his icy vision on Alexis Slein's smiling face, knowing that his fate is already sealed there. The hero coldly concludes that to reach his great final objective, that young swordsman will have to die today. A week earlier, Alexis was standing before a meeting table with holographic figures, discussing a dungeon. He gives a greedy smile, promising his mysterious superiors that he will ensure the recovery of the item. Alexis, that the great target of his search is the legendary mythical item that Riot Burger himself left behind in the past. Back in the present, the group finally enters the first floor of the dark and dangerous underground stone dungeon. Alexis stands out on the front line, activating his parrying technique to completely cancel the enemy's blows. He blocks the crushing punch of a huge burning stone golem that guarded the depths of that corridor. The giant flame monster is pushed back after having its violent charge completely neutralized. Ein takes advantage of the perfect opening and leaps from above with his sharp daggers, ready to deliver a lethal blow. He uses his special deceive skill to create optical illusions and completely confuse the golem's vision. With a furious shout, he buries his glowing blade in the mud monster's core, causing it to disintegrate. Ein delivers the final blow to the mud monster with his sharp dagger, causing a small explosion of golden light. The golem's huge stone body begins to disintegrate completely, scattering glowing dust all over the room. Alexis celebrates the victory and warns the group that they can already proceed toward the dungeon's main chamber. The protagonist analyzes the fight in silence, thinking that the monsters there are too easy and slow for rank D. He reflects that in current times of peace, the required level of combat adventurers ended up declining quite a bit. The blonde leader kneels down to gather the glowing golden magic stone left by the defeated monster on the ground. He hands over the precious item to the hero, asking to store it in the dimensional pouch, and the protagonist obeys on the spot. Alexis thanks him with a beautiful smile, affirming that having that cargo support truly makes things much easier. Riot reflects that killing the blonde would be easy, but he needs to forge a perfect accident so as not to leave clues of the crime. He knows very well that the choice of the exact moment for the fatal attack will be crucial for the mission's success. The group finally stops before an immense red wooden door that gives direct access to the boss chamber. Upon opening the doors, they come face to face with the terrible dungeon boss, a stone giant enveloped in intense flames. Alexis points to the back of the chamber, reminding them that the real objective there is to recover only the hidden treasure chest. The chest, locked with heavy chains and a large iron padlock, sits positioned on top of a stone structure. He explains that inside the chest, there is a valuable mythical magical tool that will yield a lot of money for all of them. The blonde adds by saying that if they manage to grab the chest safely, they will not need to fight against the boss now. Ein questions him indignantly, affirming that it is impossible to reach the treasure without first defeating that giant monster. He points out that the boss blocks the entire path and that entering the combat zone without preparation would be suicide. Alexis lets out a sinister smile, agreeing with the gravity of the situation, and prepares to reveal his cruel plan. He reveals that even the largest heroes guild failed in this mission, leaving his partner Ein completely terrified. Alexis takes a step forward calmly, soothing the group by saying that he possesses a secret card up his sleeve. Suddenly, in a cowardly betrayal, the leader pushes the cleric Carisha directly into the boss's attack zone. Carisha turns around in complete state of shock, unable to understand the reason for that cruel attitude from her own leader. She falls helpless onto the floor of the boss chamber, while the young thief Ein shouts desperately for his companion's name. The giant flame golem immediately detects the intruder and begins to move with devastating fury in her direction. Ein runs in despair and throws himself over the cleric to protect her from the immense stone fist that was descending against both. Alexis observes the entire scene with a wicked smile, coldly commenting that the stone giant finally woke up. The young thief shouts, cursing the leader as a traitor, but Alexis tells him to shut up, explaining that that is part of the plan. The blonde reveals that while someone keeps the boss occupied in combat, a secret and safe path will open on the side. The hero silently observes the stone platforms rising from the lava, creating the direct passage to the treasure chest. He explains animatedly that with the shortcut activated, he will be able to grab the valuable item and complete the mission without needing to fight the monster. Ein roars in hatred upon realizing for good that the leader used his own group companion as a live and disposable bait. Alexis laughs in an insane way, affirming that commoners exist only to serve as a step for his life of luxury. Ein fires back, irritated, mocking the fact that Alexis is just a bankrupt noble who lost all his former social status. The blonde's smile disappears instantly, and he tells his companion to shut his mouth, calling him a gutter piece of trash. He reveals with a psychopathic look that he knows very well about all the secrets that the two tried to hide from the group. The blonde reveals that he knows about the secret relationship and the acts considered impure that the two committed in hiding. Ein is left completely with no reaction upon seeing his secret revealed, while the young cleric just cries in embarrassment. He reminds them that the loss of purity of a cleric is an unforgivable taboo, and that it will cause her execution by the Inquisition. Alexis opens another sadistic smile and affirms that they know perfectly well the terrible fate that awaits them in the church. Kirisha trembles with fear and cries in silence upon remembering the cruel punishments she would receive if the case were reported. Ein shouts, advancing with fury against the traitor leader, wanting to end that blackmailer's life right then and there. Alexis laughs and warns that he has no time to worry about fights since the golem is about to attack them in the arena. The colossal stone golem in flames roars furiously and raises its immense rock fist, preparing the crushing strike. The giant beast focuses its destructive vision directly on the defenseless cleric, who is paralyzed with terror on the floor. The immense fist, enveloped in flames, descends at high speed, cutting through the air and promising to crush everything below. A devastating explosion of fire and stones happens with the violent impact of the golem's attack, destroying the platform. In the middle of the smoke, Ein coughs heavily and embraces the girl desperately, asking if she can still move from there. But before they could flee, the huge stone monster raises its fist again, preparing one more deadly charge. Ein grinds his teeth in pure despair and tries to carry the cleric on his back, even knowing he will not have time to dodge. Alexis observes the two running in flight and coldly decides to leave them behind to die in the dungeon. He calls the protagonist, commanding that he run quickly to ensure the security and transport of the chest. Alexis warns that if the two die, the secret path will close and they need to grab the chest before that. He says that he does not know which magical item is inside the chest, but counts on his dimensional pouch to carry it. The protagonist just listens to everything in complete silence, maintaining his disguise as a harmless newcomer in the group. Riot thinks that leader truly is a complete piece of human garbage, perfectly justifying his death contract. But instead of going to the chest, the hero calmly walks in the direction of the combat, affirming that he will not abandon anyone. The protagonist advances with firm steps toward the colossal flame golem that was preparing its next attack. Alexis laughs, calling him stupid, and scoffs, saying that a mere baggage handler cannot do anything there. He warns that the young man will die for nothing, but the hero just smiles and activates his incredible magical materialization power. An immense explosion of blue energy glows at the location while he invokes the legendary sacred sword Excalibur. The hero's gaze glows intensely with a bluish tone, revealing all his immense and devastating combat power. With a single precise movement of his sacred sword, he delivers a gigantic slash of light that cracks the entire stone chamber. Alexis falls into a complete state of shock alongside the other companions who witness that unbelievable scene. The hero sheathes his sword silently, while the blue particles of his magic begin to vanish in the hot air. Ein and Kirisha remain paralyzed on the floor, unable to comprehend how a simple newcomer possesses so much strength. The hero asks for forgiveness in a low voice and warns that from that moment on, that entire area will be closed off. He uses the mystical perfume of silence, causing the duo of companions to instantly fall into a deep sleep. Alexis begins to tremble with terror upon realizing that the giant golem was completely destroyed with just one blow. Totally terrified, the blonde leader points his finger in the hero's direction, demanding to know who he really is. The hero responds with an icy whisper, revealing his true and legendary name of Riot Burger. The protagonist stares at him with a murderous look and warns with absolute coldness that he came there solely to kill him. His slow and silent steps echo through the stone room as the young man prepares to finalize the contract. A strong blast of wind cuts through the dungeon air, cornering the blonde swordsman against the stone wall. Alexis sweats from nervousness upon hearing the legendary warrior's name and falls into complete panic before that opponent. He tries to force a hysterical laugh, saying it is ridiculous for a mere porter to use the name of a legend from the past. But upon noticing the protagonist's seriousness, he trembles, asking if the hero is also after the mythical item. The protagonist is slightly surprised and interested to hear the blonde mention the theft of his magical creations. The hero asks where he managed to get that information, and Alexis deduces that he approached the group out of pure interest. Alexis shouts angrily, saying that that valuable relic belongs exclusively to him, and tries to counterattack. But with a single precise movement, the hero breaks Alexis's blade into several pieces. He warns that, since it was he who defeated the boss monster, he will be the sole person responsible for opening the treasure chest. The blonde rants, calling the protagonist a coward for hiding his magical power just to steal the item in the end. The hero ignores the insults and opens the chest, revealing that in its interior there are only a few vials of red potion. He holds one of the vials and notices with disillusionment that that is just an ordinary potion, and not one of his mythical items. The protagonist deduces that the blonde was fooled by someone, but concludes that the clue about his real relics is true. The hero focuses his suspicions on the figure of Sir Haste, wondering if the blonde knight in armor is behind that. Alexis approaches with greed, truly believing that that ordinary potion is the valuable legendary artifact sought after. The blonde orders that he hand over the potion, but the hero gives a mocking smile and suggests making a financial deal. Alexis gets completely confused, not understanding the meaning of that negotiation proposal made by the assassin. Riot pretends to negotiate, saying he can sell the item if the blonde is willing to pay an extremely high amount. The swordsman roars furiously, affirming that he does not care about his story, and that he needs that item no matter what. With ground teeth, he warns that if the hero does not hand over the vial peacefully, he will take it by force right there. The protagonist stares at him coldly, reminding him that the blonde already witnessed his crushing strength against the giant golem. Alexis swallows hard and retreats trembling upon remembering the ease with which the stone monster was sliced in the dungeon. Seeing that he has no chance in a direct combat, the blonde surrenders and accepts to negotiate, asking what the value is. The hero gives a smile, charging the absurd and impossible fortune of 100 million gold coins for all the vials. Alexis falls into complete despair, shouting that that absurd amount would be enough to buy a mansion in the capital. The hero mockingly suggests that he ask his secret master for help, revealing his plan to extract information from him. Alexis grinds his teeth, overtaken by a blind fury, shouting for the protagonist to stop mocking his face in the dungeon. Alexis brags, affirming that he works for the influential Fire Dragon clan and that 100 million is just spare change for them. The hero reflects in silence, confirming that that large adventurer's guild is who provides the information to him. The blonde orders that he hand over the vial immediately, and the protagonist agrees to proceed with the deal. The protagonist throws the vials in Alexis's direction with total indifference, as if the potions had no value. The blonde swordsman catches the vials in the air with extreme greed, letting out a laugh of victory in the middle of the scene. Alexis opens a psychopathic smile, mocking the protagonist and calling the hero a complete fool for trusting him. He shouts, running in flight, that that item is his passport back to nobility, and that he would never pay anything for that. Riot just smiles, saying that he already expected that betrayal, and discreetly draws his magical stakes tool. In a fraction of a second, the invisible and sharp wires close around Alexis, binding him in a violent way. The blonde widens his eyes, confused upon feeling the sharp lines slicing his skin and spilling his blood across the floor. The blood splatters violently across the large doors, sealing once and for all the arrogant noble's tragic fate in the dungeon. Alexis's body disintegrates completely in the middle of a puddle of blood, confirming the success of that assassination. The protagonist glares at him with disdain, affirming with total coldness that the swordsman was already marked to die there. A short time later, the young thief Ein begins to slowly regain his consciousness and to move on the chamber floor. The hero greets him, saying he is relieved for him waking up, and asks how he is feeling physically now. Ain immediately remembers the deadly danger and shouts in panic, desperately calling for Carisha's name. He looks to the side and sees the cleric resting peacefully leaning against the stone column without any danger nearby. The hero warns that she is doing great and just sleeping, as all her serious injuries were completely healed. He lies naturally, informing with fake sorrow that Alexis ended up falling into a fatal trap and passed away. Ain observes the huge trail of blood on the floor, shocked upon realizing that the traitor leader truly met his end. The hero invents that the blonde tried to steal the chest and flee alone, making the young thief comprehend the situation. Ain admiringly praises the hero for having defeated that colossal dungeon boss with just a single attack. The protagonist scratches his head, pretending shyness, saying that he just threw some random magical item and got lucky in the fight. The young thief stares at him with a drop of sweat on his face, finding that humble luck justification way too bizarre. He comments that the fellow has a lot of luck and is a natural combat adventurer, and the hero just thanks the praise, smiling. In this movement, the young cleric Carisha begins to move, slowly yawning while awakening from her deep sleep. Ain embraces her relieved, celebrating her awakening, while the protagonist observes the scene with a serene and satisfied look. The hero smiles sideways in a friendly way, suggesting that everyone begin to walk together back toward the dungeon exit. After delivering the official mission report to the Adventurers Guild, the three take different paths in the kingdom. The hero observes the young couple waving from afar, fondly remembering that they dated in secret to avoid the church. He recalls that the terrible blonde leader used blackmail to force the cleric and stole all the reward money. But now, with that blackmailer gone, the protagonist just sincerely wishes that the young couple can be happy. The hero walks peacefully through the city's beautiful square, knowing he fulfilled one more important stage of his revenge journey. Back at the Dark Guild headquarters, the receptionist congratulates the protagonist for the excellent work on the promotion mission. The girl smiles highly animatedly, commenting that she already expected that absurd speed coming from a warrior like him. She hands over the documents, confirming that he now belongs to rank C, and the hero already asks what his next contract will be. The receptionist warns that the new task given to him will be to escort the powerful Noise Hamon on an exploration expedition. The hero goes on high alert upon discovering that Noise's mission has a direct relationship with the theft of his relics. He realizes that the mystery of his mythical items surfaced again, even though that information should be a military secret. Riot seriously deduces that someone of high rank is leaking secret data and decides to accelerate his hunt for the client. He knows very well that he needs to recover all his mythical weapons before the villain uses them to spread total chaos. The scene changes to the luxurious meeting room of the Fire Dragon clan, where holographic figures talk around the table. A bearded man with glasses complains angrily, calling the late Alexis useless for failing in such a simple mission. A holographic woman laughs, commenting that at least the blonde understood the real reason for being expelled from his family. Another member asks about the mythical item, and the bearded man responds that, as expected, the dungeon treasure was fake. One of the holographic officials affirms seriously that even with that failure, they cannot delay the main plan. The evil plan consists of plunging the entire world back into absolute chaos to ensure the clan's eternal power. The warrior standing before the table makes a bow, asking if the final decision is acceptable for the clan's vice-captain. The vice-captain, named Terrio, smiles cynically, claiming that that choice is in accordance with the orders of the Star of the Sword. The scene cuts to the entrance of the Taurus hidden dungeon, where the powerful Noise Hamon awaits standing before the ice portal. Noise Hamon turns around smiling in a seductive way to receive the hero, commenting that he ended up getting a bit late. She ironically calls him her most promising newcomer while the protagonist emerges imposing in the middle of the portal. The protagonist stares at her with seriousness, recalling that she occupies the prestigious second position of the entire rank S. He knows very well that that woman in front of him is the dangerous and extremely feared assassin Noise Hamon. The hero complains about the unusual meeting location and the absurd deadline of just 1 hour to reach the hidden dungeon. Noise fires back with a sarcastic smile, claiming that if he were acting seriously, he would have arrived there much faster. The protagonist glares at her in a cold way, wanting to know what the real reason is that makes her think in such a suspicious manner. The female villain raises a small, glowing blue magic crystal fragment, preparing to make a shocking revelation. She throws the magic crystal backward, affirming that all that doubt is about to be properly cleared up. The blue magic artifact clashes with force against the large glaciers of the dungeon, releasing an immense cosmic energy. A strong explosion of energy and shattered pieces of ice happens suddenly, shaking the entire structure of the chamber. From the middle of the cold mist, the gigantic ice dungeon boss emerges, roaring with a lot of fury before the motionless hero. The terrible ice monster delivers a devastating attack, descending its frozen rock fist against the protagonist. The brutal blow crushes the ground, generating an immense cloud of freezing smoke and shattering ice stones around. The hero uses his sacred aegis to contain the charge, and admits that each punch from that giant is incredibly heavy. He knows that his puppet body will not suffer real damage, but reflects that defeating that beast will be quite laborious. The giant continues delivering a sequence of heavy and destructive attacks against the glowing magical barrier. The hero dodges by taking agile leaps and asks the female villain if it is true that that dungeon hides a mythical relic. Noise confesses with mockery and cynicism that that story was a lie just to lure the hero to that cold chamber. The protagonist is slightly surprised by that answer, revealing he was fooled by his new elite contractor. The dungeon boss takes advantage of the moment of distraction to deliver one more deadly charge in the warrior's direction. The hero lands on the ground and questions her seriously, wanting to know how much she really knows about his relics. The female villain glares at him closely with a mysterious smile, confirming that she perfectly knows the power of those legendary items. The hero coldly asks if that entire situation set up in the ice dungeon was just a test to measure his strength. Noise points smilingly to the giant monster and warns him that he will end up dying if he continues diverting his attention. The colossal ice golem raises its arm covered in sharp stalactites again, preparing its crushing strike. But the protagonist leaps at high speed, channeling an immense and destructive reddish aura in his hands. He invokes the feared scarlet whip of lament, while the female villain watches the combat with a lot of attention from up there. The red energy wires of the whip close around the monster's horn, immobilizing it in a spectacular way. Next, he uses one more of his magical creations, manifesting in the air the legendary and gleaming Excalibur sword. With a single divine and devastating cut, the hero severs the colossal ice monster's head in a few seconds. The giant's frozen body collapses, disintegrating completely while the young man lands with elegance on the floor. Noise analyzes him astonished, commenting that she thought she would manage to measure the warrior's true power in that combat. She notices surprised that the fellow fought without making any effort, and that he still possesses an immense reserve of hidden power. The beautiful female villain slowly walks to him, making the sound of her high heels echo in a mysterious way through the chamber. She comments mischievously that the fellow resembles a terrifying demon who pretends to be just a mere common human. The hero fires back, finding amusement in that peculiar accusation, but Noise insists on her guess with extreme conviction. The female villain glares into his eyes and directly affirms that she is absolutely sure that he is not a real human being. She raises her hand, channeling her dark aura, and manifests once more her feared and gigantic purple magic serpent. The viper's scaly head stops a few millimeters from the protagonist's face, who remains motionless without even blinking. The snake threatens to give a lethal bite to his forehead, but the hero maintains his completely cold and indifferent posture. Noise smiles victoriously, affirming that total lack of reaction before a surprise attack would be impossible. He just caresses the snake's head, calmly responding that he only got surprised by the invocation's agility. She insists that any warrior would try to dodge upon being caught by surprise, and that not blinking is something bizarre. The protagonist just ignores her suspicions and prepares to deflect the subject from his true identity. She says that she followed his steps and ended up stopping at a famous tool shop that was destroyed by fire. The female villain reveals that she found out about the elderly merchant who lived there alone with his beloved grandson, leaving the hero surprised. She says that upon analyzing the corpses of the tragedy's victims, she ended up noticing something of extreme importance there. Noise reveals with a triumphant smile that she discovered that the old merchant was actually the legendary weapon creator. The scene ends in a mysterious way, leaving in the air the definitive revelation of the hero's greatest and best-kept secret. A fierce monster suddenly advances against the hero and the female villain, delivering an attack with its giant weapon. Noise coldly warns the opponent that she is talking at that moment and demands that he not dare to interrupt her. The tail of her huge purple serpent emerges in the air and crushes the opponent against the rocky ground with extreme force. The hero glares at the female villain with total seriousness, asking what that old story has to do with him. She reveals her intriguing hypothesis, questioning if he would not be the legendary creator of mythical items. Noise smiles from the side and pronounces the legendary name of Riot Burger, staring fixedly into the hero's eyes. She recalls the legend of the young genius capable of rivaling rank S, and who possessed spectacular skills. The protagonist listens to her deductions in silence, realizing that that theory would explain everything that happened. The female villain questions if that legendary warrior, who should be dead, ended up resurrecting in some way. She smiles mischievously, saying she cannot avoid thinking that this is exactly the real case of the story. Noise stares at him in a provoking way and asks with a mysterious look for him to reveal the entire truth about himself. She asks directly where he really came from, and the hero just observes her without showing any reaction. Riot closes his eyes thoughtfully upon listening to that question about his true origin and his mysterious past. He recalls visions of his previous life marked by violent battles and the memory of a smiling child. Dark memories of betrayal and a terrible violent death pass quickly through the young warrior's mind. The protagonist opens his eyes, returning to focus on the present, and prepares to respond to the persistent questioner. Riot moves his hand, releasing invisible wires, and coldly warns that he cannot answer that question in any way. The giant armored monster is suddenly cornered and totally immobilized by the hero's blue magic strings. The beast tries to break free desperately, but the sharp wires close with even more force around its body. Riot raises his arm, channeling his magical energy to activate his incredible magical item creation ability. A colossal glowing hammer emerges in the air, enveloped in green lightning, revealing the legendary mythical weapon Mjolnir. The giant monster bellows in terror upon seeing the immense and destructive magic weapon floating right in front of it in the chamber. The protagonist stares at it with absolute seriousness while preparing the command to deliver the devastating attack. The legendary Mjolnir hammer descends with a violent and destructive impact, generating an immense explosion of green lightning. Riot warns with a dark smile that if necessary, he will have to deal with her in the same violent way as before. The hero walks imposingly in the middle of the dust, coldly warning that she must cooperate if she does not want to die there. He points his sharp sword directly against the female villain's neck, commanding that she shut up and cooperate with him. The protagonist guarantees with a penetrating look that if she cooperates, she will not be treated in a bad way by him. The girl laughs and pushes the blade away, saying that threats do not work with her, because he would have already killed her if he wanted to. Noise smiles victoriously, affirming that he needs her help to manage to climb to the coveted rank S. The hero corrects her, saying that in reality, what he truly seeks is precise information about a serious matter. She opens a wide smile and agrees, demonstrating being very interested in listening to what the fellow wants to know. He reveals with a serious look that he wishes to know the entire truth about the culprit who assassinated him in the past. Riot remembers the mysterious mastermind known as the Client, who possessed rank S strength and a mark on the face. Noise gets intrigued and surprises by repeating that information about the assassin possessing a scar or facial mark. The hero asks if she knows something, but the female villain dodges, saying she will reveal no information for free. The protagonist grinds his teeth, irritated upon realizing that she is refusing to cooperate in a friendly way there. She smiles mischievously, guaranteeing that she will cooperate, but demands that the relationship of master and servant stay very clear. Noise approaches and touches his chest, warning that he will have to fulfill all her orders to have the answers. The young man sighs irritated, thinking about how problematic and tiring it will be to have to deal with that pushy woman. She whispers that there is no choice, since it would be a huge waste to let a power that can change the world escape. The female villain says she will use his strength for her own objectives, and that the interests of both are well aligned there. The protagonist accepts the proposal reluctantly, but seriously demands that she fulfill her part of the deal. She agrees smilingly, and suggests that they return immediately to the Adventurers Guild without losing any more time. While walking outside, Noise reflects in silence, confirming her certainty that he is indeed Riot Berger. With a dark and focused look, she begins to plot her next steps in the face of that great discovery. The female villain opens as a wicked smile, thinking that she needs to find a way to use that formidable warrior to her advantage. The hero observes a luxurious door decorated in gold and confusedly asks where they just arrived in the building. She introduces her immense office, explaining that Rank S adventurers receive high-level private rooms. Riot understands the explanation and directly asks what the next step is that they should take from there. Noise asks the fellow for calmness and opens a folder of reports, saying she has very special information for him. She shows a document with the list of investigated members of the Fire Dragon Clan's Veterans Association. Riot analyzes the report, remembering that this clan provided the secret data about his mythical relics. The female villain explains that this Veterans Association serves to give financial support but hides much larger secrets. The hero gets surprised when Noise reveals that the group of retirees managed to lay their hands on a mythical item. She says that an investigation mission was opened, and the fellow immediately asks who the author of that request was. The royal army that the protagonist was a part of was who lost the relic and now desperately seeks it. Riot asks which item was stolen, but Noise says that that information of extreme importance was not revealed. She confirms that she wants him to investigate the group, and guarantees that the conclusion of the case will give him rank B as a hero. Noise blinks mischievously, asking if that deal does not seem perfect and extremely advantageous for both. The young man agrees, but coldly points out that reaching only rank B is still not enough for his plans. The warrior leaves the location, demanding that she prepare a rank S mission for when he returns from there. He walks through the corridor, thinking that tracking the mythical items is the best path to find his final target. Riot clenches his fist in fury, determined to get his revenge and prevent his weapons from being used for evil. He knows very well that to accomplish his great objective, he cannot afford the luxury of stopping in a place like this. The scene cuts to the busy and noisy official headquarters of the powerful adventurers clan, known as the Fire Dragon. A wooden mug is slammed with extreme force on the table, while someone shouts that they fell into a trap. The sub-leader Hyona rants furiously, complaining that the dungeon that should be rank B in reality was of level S. A bearded warrior laughs in the face of her outrage, trying to calm down his irritated companion's temper. The rank adventurer named Rex asks with a relaxed smile for the young female warrior to just calm down. He thanks her for having defeated the boss monster, saving everyone, and securing great profits with rare materials. Hyona complains, saying that he is too lazy, while grabbing a bread from the table to begin eating peacefully. Dino says with a full mouth that it was precisely due to that careless attitude that he ended up expelled from a rank S group. Rex roars irritated, telling the young man to shut up, and affirms that he left the group on his own to be able to help Hyona. The female warrior sighs, saying that if she knew about his terrible drinking habits, she never would have accepted to make the duo. She slams the table with force, interrupting her companion's silly argument to speak of a very serious matter. Hyona pulls her colleague by the collar, affirming that those old men from the association want to get rid of the reformists. She says that the portal's rank mistake was purposeful to make them die in what should look like just an accident. Dino comments that he heard rumors about a mysterious and very suspicious man frequenting that association's headquarters. The red-haired warrior's gaze gets extremely sharp and tense upon absorbing that intriguing revelation. She clenches her fist, affirming with determination that if they want to kill them, they should attack and act first. Rex holds her hand, asking for calmness, and ponders that violent attitude is too extreme against the clan's founders. Dino says that since they are not of rank S, the only viable alternative is to manage to gather more allies to the cause. Hyona and Rex look intrigued at the companion, who confirms the necessity of seeking new forces for the group. The young man describes that they need someone with a flexible mind and a strong sense of justice who does not fear threats. He continues describing the perfect requirements while a mysterious person finally opens the door of the location. Dino completes by saying that this ally must be someone considerably stronger than any rank S hero. Hyona questions, disillusioned, whether a formidable warrior of this level truly exists or if it is just a silly fantasy. While they talk, a bully approaches the protagonist who was passing by there, glaring at him like a random newcomer. The red-haired warrior thinks that maybe they should train someone strong on their own to be their ideal ally. The bully lets out a loud laugh, mocking the idea, and says that the only fools who would follow her would be weirdos like Dino. Hyona gets annoyed, telling them to stop with that ridiculous joke and focus on giving a truly useful idea there. Suddenly, a violent crash happens when the bully is thrown far away, destroying tables with the impact. The protagonist adjusts his gloves, sighing bored, and complains that newcomer hazing truly happens everywhere. The companions look back surprised, commenting that that newcomer, for sure, is someone quite hot-headed. The redhead glares at the young man in complete silence, trying to understand what just happened before her own eyes. Hyona's eye widens in pure amazement while her mind tries to process that blow's absurd speed. She reflects that she was keeping an eye on the fellow for being a new face, but failed to notice any sign of attack from him. The female warrior concludes, startled that she was totally incapable of reacting before seeing the bulks flying through the tavern. She notices that he struck the vital points with perfect precision, controlling the exact strength so as not to kill them. Hyona opens an excited smile, having absolute certainty that that mysterious young man is of rank S or higher. Rex calls her confused while she runs, thinking that any common person would have let that detail pass. The other henchmen begin to stand up irritated and shout, telling the protagonist not to play games with them there. One of them questions furiously where he thinks he is while the hero just glares at him with total boredom and disdain. Before the fight continues, Hyona suddenly surfaces in front of the hero, shouting to catch his attention. The redhead points directly to the young man's chest, asking if he has interest in joining their clan. The hero just observes her in silence with a calm countenance, while waiting for her to finish speaking her proposal. Hyona opens a beautiful smile and makes the final invitation, suggesting that the fellow enter directly into her group. Hyona flashes a beautiful smile and invites Ray to join her adventurer party. Ray looks surprised by the invitation, while Dino explains that they are looking for someone strong like him. One of the lackeys complains about the decision, but Hyona snaps at him to shut his mouth immediately. The redhead turns back to the young man and asks him what he thinks of the proposal. He declines the invitation with a smile, saying he doesn't intend to join a permanent party. Ray silently reflects that he needs to act alone to slip away without any trouble after the mission. Hyona laments his refusal and asks if he truly prefers working completely solo. She extends her hand in a friendly gesture, telling him to look her up if he ever needs anything. The redhead finally introduces herself as Hyona, the sub-leader of that adventurer clan. He shakes her hand, introducing himself as Ray, and promises to reach out to her if the need arises. The story goes that the Fire Dragon clan was founded by Meltzen Hilt and Pilsner Hojak. These legendary heroes became famous in the past by taking down the terrible dragon Zaraksail. Among all the members, the one who stood out the most was Dunkel Slain, the dragon hunter. A luxurious carriage arrives at the scene, bringing a very important guest to the meeting. The veteran Dunkel Slain emerges with an imposing posture and a very serious look. Meanwhile, the protagonist discreetly watches all the movement from high above. He remembers that Dunkel is the uncle of Alexis Slain, the nobleman he recently eliminated. Ray recalls that records showed Dunkel controlled all the money belonging to the nobles. The hero deduces that it was probably the old man who told Alexis about the mythical items. Ray begins to shadow the old man's carriage, stealthily leaping across the city rooftops. He reflects that the veteran's public activities make the investigation quite easy. The carriage finally pulls up in front of a very busy establishment at night. Dunkel steps down from the carriage and is greeted with deep reverence by a staff member. The hero lands on the neighboring roof, closely watching every single step of his target down below. Ray analyzes the establishment and immediately realizes what kind of place it is. The venue is actually an underground casino with a luxurious area reserved for VIPs. Inside, a nobleman celebrates, saying the plan and the acquisition of the mythical item were a total success. The hooded man praises the veteran Dunkel for the brilliant execution of their plans. The mysterious hooded man smiles sinisterly, knowing that everything is working out perfectly. Ray uses his magic spider to eavesdrop on the conversation and wonders if the hooded man is the leader. The man laments that world peace has drastically decreased their profits from the dungeons. Dunkel thinks the terrible idea of trying to resurrect that creature is complete madness. The hooded man counters maliciously, stating that the greater the chaos, the better it is for them. The veteran remains impressed by the audacity of the plan, though he still has reservations. From high on the roof, the hero listens intently to every single detail of that dark conversation. The conspirators reveal that the creature to be revived is the legendary dragon Xerixiel. If the monster is revived, its immense power will awaken hordes of monsters throughout the region. Dunkel delights in imagining the immense amount of gold and glory they will receive. The villain guarantees that the Fire Dragon clan will enter a prosperous new golden age. Ray listens to the villain's delusions while feeling a wave of anger at their selfish plan. The hero reflects on the dragon, Xerixiel, and realizes the magnitude of the approaching danger. Ray remembers that he himself sealed the dragon away in the past using his powerful mythical weapons. The artifacts used in the sealing were two magic gourds of immense mystical power. If the effects of the relics are reversed, the capital will be completely destroyed. The hero decides with fierce determination that he must prevent this catastrophe at all costs. Ray hears the hooded man mention a third person involved in the malicious plan. The villain guarantees he has total control of the situation, but quickly changes the subject in the room. The hooded man warns that he is sensing a strange presence snooping on their conversation. He suspects that the detected presence is far too subtle to belong to a human being. Ray's listening spider is suddenly sliced in half, cutting off the audio transmission. The pieces of the destroyed magic spider fall silently to the floor of the room. The hooded man analyzes the fragments, realizing it was a spy spider. Ray watches from afar, keeping his expression completely serious and focused. The hero recognizes that the enemy is sharp for noticing an item that barely emits any mana. He laments no longer being able to use the device to uncover the villain's full plan. Left with no other choice, the protagonist decides he will have to infiltrate the place in person. Meanwhile, the main hall of the underground casino remains packed with customers. Ray walks through the hall in disguise, thinking about how they intend to control the dragon. Suddenly, a crucial memory surfaces in the hero's mind, changing his expression. He remembers a mystical relic from the past capable of manipulating memories. Ray deduces that the mentioned accomplice must be the true wielder of that artifact. The hero begins to suspect the identity of the mysterious persons behind it all. He hears a sudden noise and quickly turns to the side, on high alert. Ray grabs the arm of a waitress dressed as a bunny, who immediately complains of pain. The young man's eyes widen as he realizes exactly who he just caught. Hyona is shocked to recognize the young rookie and asks what he's doing there. Ray says that's his line and questions her about being dressed that way. The redhead becomes extremely embarrassed to be caught in such a provocative outfit. The young man asks if she works there, and Hyona tries to justify herself, completely flustered. She begs him to keep it a secret, claiming she has important personal reasons. Hyona thinks to herself that she can't reveal to a rookie that she's investigating the veterans. The hero just murmurs that he understands while calmly analyzing the situation. Ray concludes that they both share the same goal of stopping the clan's veterans. With a swift movement, the hero corners her against the wall, taking the young woman by surprise. He whispers up close, asking if the invitation to the party is still open. Hyona asks if he means their group, and the young man confirms with total seriousness. He states that she dressed up like this to gather information about the secret room. Ray proposes to tell her Dunkel's secret plan if she agrees to cooperate with him right now. The redhead is quite intrigued and wants to know how he found out about this meeting. She decides to accept the deal regardless to get evidence against the veteran. Hyona warns that she doesn't fully trust him yet, but she knows he isn't a bad guy. She flashes a confident smile, reminding him that she's the clan's sub-leader for a good reason. The young man smiles to himself, mentally thanking that he doesn't need to give any more explanations. Ray asks her to cause a commotion in the hall to force the villains out of the room. The redhead gives a mischievous smile, guaranteeing she has the perfect trick for the occasion. Ray watches curiously as she pulls a mysterious device from her outfit. She shows off a walkie-talkie, and the hero recognizes the technological device from a distance. Fast, firm footsteps suddenly begin to echo through the corridors of the venue. Armed soldiers storm the casino, shouting and ordering that no one dare to move. The gamblers panic upon seeing the surprise raid by the royal army. The army commander announces that everyone in the venue will be taken in for questioning. He orders everyone to stay where they are and warns that suspects will be punished on the spot. Ray admits he didn't expect her to involve the royal armed forces in the plan. Hyona whispers that the building is surrounded and that the villains will have no way to escape. Ray warns that criminals of this caliber always have well-prepared escape routes. Just as predicted, the two villains are already running away through the dark sewer tunnels. The hooded man complains crossly, saying the veteran is getting far too sloppy. Dunkel fumes with rage, swearing he paid generous bribes to avoid getting caught red-handed. The hooded man suggests they split up along the way to lower the risk of capture. He flees, feeling suspicious that the timing of that police raid was a bit too convenient. The hooded man climbs a ladder, concluding that the earlier eavesdropping wasn't the army's doing. He emerges into a dark city alley, discreetly opening a wooden door to escape. The villain fears that the secret details of the plan have leaked to a third party. The criminal knows he can't waste time and rushes to speed up the plan's execution. Suddenly, a small magical flame comes flying up behind him and hits his shoulder out of nowhere. His eyes widen in shock as he realizes he was hit by a fire spell out of the blue. The villain dodges a flaming torch thrown at him, sensing a presence lying in wait. Ray emits from the shadows, delivering an extremely fast physical blow against his opponent. The protagonist lands gracefully on the stone ground as smoke begins to scatter. Ray lands a devastating downward kick that forces the enemy back with incredible power. The hooded man grits his teeth, feeling the violent impact of the hero's surprise attack. The villain slides across the stone floor of the alley, trying to regain his balance after the blow. The hero walks calmly toward his opponent, keeping his steps firm and resolute. The enemy stands up in surprise, noting that a simple army scout possesses so much physical strength. He glares at the protagonist, stating he is no ordinary soldier, and demands to know what he wants. Ray says he just wants to ask a few questions about the secret meeting he had with Dunkel. The villain smiles, realizing this mysterious young man was the one snooping on everything. He draws his glowing dagger and mockingly warns that he is under no obligation to answer. The opponent charges at the hero at high speed, initiating direct combat right then and there. The enemy suddenly activates one of his advanced combat special techniques. He uses a shadow dive ability, making the protagonist look down at the ground in surprise. The villain suddenly resurfaces directly from Ray's shadow, readying a strike with his blade. Ray senses the attack coming from behind and prepares to counterattack in a fraction of a second. The hero reacts instantly, blocking the deadly plunge with a precise strike of red light. The villain is in complete shock to see his weapon bound by glowing red magic chains. Ray praises the opponent's rare technique but reveals he was already expecting something of that level. The hooded man retreats back into the darkness, praising the protagonist's quick reaction. The opponent decides to ramp up the intensity of the fight, summoning several magic daggers into the air. The floating weapons surround Ray on all sides, ready to fire simultaneously. With agile and precise movements, the hero dodges and deflects every single projectile with zero difficulty. The enemy panics upon seeing his strongest offensive easily repelled. He realizes that Ray is using his whip at high speed just to mock his attacks. The villain grits his teeth, noting that simple tricks won't work against this adversary. He analyzes the young man, concluding that he is far too used to completely overpowering his enemies. The villain flashes a sinister smile, realizing he will need to use his true trump card to win. He lets out a macabre laugh, admitting it has been a very long time since he fought at full strength. The opponent summons a gleaming sword surrounded by a dense cloud of dark energy. Ray watches seriously, finally understanding the opponent's true fighting style. The opponent advances with firm, rapid steps, preparing the decisive blow with his new blade. The villain attacks fiercely, shouting that the hero will never leave this dark alley alive. The protagonist's eyes flash intensely as he focuses his entire attention on the charge. Ray manages to evade the devastating slash by millimeters as it tears through the air around him. The hero realizes that the reach and force of the enemy's strike are much greater than they appear. The two begin trading rapid blows, generating bright sparks all over the scene. The villain shouts with insane excitement, saying the real battle is just beginning. Ray notes that the enemy wields heavy swords, demonstrating an extraordinary level of physical stamina. He considers wearing his opponent down, but decides he needs to finish the fight as quickly as possible. Ray invokes his mystical iron stake ability to create extremely sharp wires in the air. The villain suddenly finds himself trapped by the mana lines and curses at the protagonist in absolute rage. Ray pulls the strings, knowing the opponent must comprehend the deadly danger of those lines. Ray notices that the villain's next move will be to dive into the shadows to close the distance. As he attempts to resurface from the shadows, the enemy is suddenly intercepted by Ray's sharp lines. The villain panics upon realizing the hero predicted his movements and placed wires behind him too. Ray gives a mocking smile, saying he fell right into the trap by relying way too much on his abilities. The hooded man thrashes angrily, claiming the fight isn't over yet and that he has one final card up his sleeve. He pulls out a mystical golden bell and crazily warns that he is going to turn the hero into his obedient puppet. Ray's gaze goes completely vacant and paralyzed upon hearing the sound emitted by the strange bell. The hero immediately recognizes that mystical bell vibration from his memories of the past. He remembers that this object is the mind manipulation artifact used to betray him previously. The villain becomes confused and annoyed upon hearing the protagonist start laughing at the spell. Ray smiles, saying he finally found what he was looking for after investigating so many rumors in the kingdom. The hero's eyes fill with fury as he realizes he has finally found a trail leading to the client. He celebrates having followed the tracks of the stolen magic relics all the way to this crucial point. With blood in his eyes, the protagonist rejoices at being so close to reaching the mastermind behind his demise. The opponent tries to maintain his tough act and questions if the young man truly believes he has won this fight. He shakes the golden bell again, mockingly warning that the hero's arrogance will be his downfall. A powerful wave of magic energy ripples through the air, attempting to dominate the protagonist's mind. The villain orders with an insane smile for the hero to reveal his true intentions there. The hero simply gives a mocking smile and calmly reveals that the spell had absolutely no effect. The opponent is completely shocked and horrified, unable to comprehend how that is even possible. Ray proudly reveals that the spell failed because he himself was the creator of that mystical bell. A flashback shows the hero in his friend Rit's laboratory, planning his next moves. The glasses-wearing alchemist hands extremely rare materials over to the hero to create new tools. The protagonist accepts with a smile and begins designing a special device to counter mana interference. The new glowing artifact was custom-made to completely nullify mind control powers. The innovative tool emits an opposing magical frequency capable of neutralizing wave manipulation. The villain is incredulous to see that a mythic-grade item was rendered completely useless against the hero. The opponent takes a step back, admitting in fear that the young man's strength has surpassed all expectations. Suddenly, the villain dives back into the shadows on the ground, putting the protagonist on high alert. Ray notices that the enemy can vanish into the shadows with just a single physical touch to the darkness. A voice echoes through the alley, saying the hero has managed to truly pique the opponent's interest. The villain resurfaces with a sinister smile in the darkness, proposing they get more creative. He delivers an overwhelming sword strike that destroys the wall of a nearby residential house. An innocent resident tumbles out of bed, terrified amidst the debris of the collapsing wall. Ray is shocked to see a helpless civilian at the scene and realizes the enemy's terrible intention. The villain smiles sardonically, golden bell in hand, ready to start his puppet show. Several innocent civilians emerge from the shadows, their eyes glowing red under mind control. The opponent cruelly orders his new soldiers to attack and immobilize the protagonist. The protagonist tries to back away and dodge the attacks without harming any of the innocent people. He dodges masterfully, silently complaining about how villains love dragging bystanders into fights. The hooded man taunts the hero, asking if he feels bad facing this situation. He maliciously asks if the hero hates seeing other people get hurt because of his actions. The villain takes advantage of the young man's hesitation and charges swiftly while he is focused on the civilians. He delivers a powerful slash from behind, warning that the hero's compassion will bring about his defeat. Ray realizes that if he dodges the attack, the sword will hit the helpless resident right behind him. Unable to dodge, the hero decides to use his own body to block the brutal sword strike. The blade strikes the protagonist's arm, generating a heavy metallic impact across the scene. The violent collision releases an immense wave of magic energy, sending dust billowing into the air. The villain is intrigued to find that his blade didn't cut any flesh despite the direct hit. The hero dusts himself off mockingly, silently noting that his artificial body is much more durable than normal. The villain finds the hero's resilience fascinating and wants to see just how much he can endure. Next, the controlled civilians charge forward once again toward the protagonist. Ray says he loves using human shields, but warns that he will no longer tolerate this cowardice. The hero invokes the perfume of silence, releasing a magical mist that puts everyone to sleep. The civilians fall asleep on the ground, leaving the villain in utter despair over losing control. Ray suddenly appears right in front of him, delivering a lightning-fast attack that makes him cough up blood. With extreme agility, the hero uses his mana lines to rip the golden bell right out of his hand. The opponent is completely immobilized by the protagonist's sharp strings and lets out a groan of pain. The hero holds the mystical relic in his hands, declaring with total coldness that the show is over. The villain trembles in terror as the hero warns that it's now his turn to ask the questions. With a threatening gaze, the protagonist demands that he speak up about his true master. Ray wants to know the reason behind the theft of the relics, while the villain roars in fury and despair. Totally cornered and battered, the opponent lowers his head, admitting defeat in the battle. He reveals with a gruesome smile that his group's grand objective is to bring about anarchy and chaos. The villain confesses that they intend to use the mythic weapons to ignite a war across the entire continent. Ray is surprised to hear about a war, as he thought the plan was merely to resurrect the dragon. The villain reveals they used money to manipulate the Fire Dragon clan into acting as the perfect front. The hero questions if they were the ones who stole the artifact under the royal army's custody. The opponent smiles with a psychotic look, confirming the protagonist's suspicions without hesitation. He reveals that the legendary mystical gourd that absorbs mana has already been successfully stolen by them. The blue mystical artifact has already been positioned directly at the site of the dragon's ceiling. He warns that the resurrection is about to begin at any moment, catching the protagonist by surprise. Ray recalls that he used 2 mystical gourds to neutralize the monster's physical and magical power. He thinks that if they break only one of the seals, the dragon will awaken in an incomplete and insane state. The villain maliciously confirms that the incomplete dragon will go on a mindless rampage, destroying everything. Ray fumes at the malice, but the villain laughs, saying he does everything for the glory of his master. The hooded man fanatically claims he doesn't care if the capital is completely wiped out. The villain laughs hysterically, while the protagonist glares at him with utter disdain for his madness. Suddenly, the darkness of the night is shattered by a colossal rumble coming from afar. As he flees down the alley, Dunkel stops dead in his tracks, realizing something terrible is happening. Hyona suddenly appears in front of him, blocking his path with a very serious expression. The redhead points her blade and orders the traitor to surrender and come with her, without causing trouble. Dunkel lets out a disdainful laugh, calling the warrior a naive rookie who understands nothing. The old man mockingly says his greedy actions serve only for the glory of the entire group. He flashes a sadistic smile and orders her in a threatening tone not to dare get in his way. The old man clenches his armored fist, channeling an immense amount of energy for the fight. Suddenly, a colossal explosion of flames tears through the ground in the background, startling the young woman. The redhead realizes that this destructive magic energy is no simple detonation spell. An immense dragon claw emerges, crushing the ground and spreading smoke and destruction through the area. The terrifying fire dragon roars in fury amidst the flames, poised to turn the capital to ash. The colossal monster opens its maw of sharp teeth, preparing a devastating breath of flames. Hyona descends into complete despair at the sight of the gigantic beast while the old man roars with laughter. Suddenly, a spell of immense magical power collides heavily directly against the dragon. Both the old man and the warrior are paralyzed in shock at seeing that unexpected interference. Ray emerges imposingly, wielding the Meteor Buster mystic cannon with its glowing energy. The hero tells the hooded villain that his interrogation about the plan's secrets can wait a bit. The protagonist readies himself with a determined gaze, stating that first, they are going to hunt a dragon. The colossal monster roars with all its destructive fury, spreading fire across the city's houses. From the top of a roof, the hero glares at the colossal beast of fire, ready to kick off the final showdown. With total determination and courage, the young warrior prepares to save the capital from destruction. A large mass of flaming energy churns violently as it tries to fuse in midair. The monster in its incomplete state can barely maintain its form, releasing an absurd amount of magic power around it. Hyona runs desperately up to Ray, who immediately asks what happened to the traitor Dunkel. She says she gave the old man a good beating and tied him up extra tight, guaranteeing he won't be waking up anytime soon. The warrior is thoroughly impressed by the earlier attack and asks if he was the one who unleashed that overwhelming power. Ray explains that he used a condensed mana bullet in an attempt to blast the monster's head off right away. But the attack ended up failing because something strange protected the gigantic dragon at the very last second. The hero realizes that all that leaking magic energy is working as a perfect protective barrier. Hyona is shocked, having never heard of such a thing, while Ray warns that the beast is going to attack again. The colossal monster begins gathering an overwhelming amount of flames directly inside its maw. A gigantic, destructive beam of fire is shot from the sky toward the city ground. The terrible explosion hits the capital's streets, causing unbelievable destruction on all sides. Ray manages to shield Hyona from the devastating shockwave, using his own body as a shield against the wind. The redhead stares in horror at the destruction caused by the beast, barely able to believe her eyes. A single breath from the monster blasted a colossal crater into the ground and split the entire city in half. Ray holds his companion firmly and warns her that she can't freeze up right there in the middle of danger. The two quickly leap away as the surrounding ground begins to completely crumble. The young man lands nimbly in a safe spot and orders her to keep her full focus on the battle. He warns that any slip-up in this confrontation will be fatal, and Hyona just grumbles while recovering. While people run in absolute panic, the dragon roars threateningly, spreading terror everywhere. The dragon's terrible breath directly hits the civilians who were frantically trying to flee that nightmare. From high on a balcony, a mysterious gray-haired man silently observes all that destruction. He maintains a completely cold, expressionless posture in the face of the chaos consuming the city. Debris keeps flying through the air as the residents' desperate screams echo throughout the entire region. Hyona looks out at the burning city and deeply laments seeing her home consumed by this criminal fire. She asks where the kingdom's knights are, and Ray calmly responds that an army takes time to move. The young man seriously concludes that they will have to deal with this terrible threat on their own. The warriors' eyes widen, unable to believe they have to face a giant monster with just the two of them. He explains that the traitors were merely pawns, and they cannot trust anyone in the kingdom to call for reinforcements. With a slight smile, the young man says the only person he can fully trust at this moment is her. This declaration of trust leaves the warrior completely speechless, her heart racing. Quite close by, several people run desperately through the narrow alleys, trying to find a safe shelter to protect themselves. A mother holds her small child in her arms as the immense fire monster looms right behind them, ready to strike. She cries in terror, desperately begging for someone to appear and save them from certain demise. At the absolute last millisecond, Hyona leaps into view with her sword drawn to position herself in front of the family. The warrior delivers a powerful strike to the ground, channeling her combat energy to create a protective barrier. She yells for her power to blaze with full intensity to unleash her secret defensive technique. An imposing golden shield materializes in the air, completely blocking the advance of the dragon's flames. The redhead orders the mother and the boy to flee the area immediately while she can still hold off the danger. Ray walks silently behind the smoke, closely observing the courage of his new combat ally. She admits there is no other choice and mentally prepares herself to face that impossible battle. With a wild smile, she wields her blade and declares that the time has come to hunt that miserable dragon. She asks what the plan is since ordinary attacks won't work, and Ray answers with great confidence. The young man reminds her that she is the true expert when it comes to taking down dragons, and she agrees, a bit flustered. The warrior explains that the proper way would be to sever the wings and tail, first to strip the beast of all mobility. The problem is that with that magic barrier covering the dragon's body, none of those standard tactics will work. Ray gives a mysterious half-smile and states that they are going to use the monster's own protective barrier against it. He uses his magic tool creation to design a ring capable of expanding her full mana capacity. Ray places the ring on her, explaining that the item works as an enhancer to raise her power to its absolute limit. The young man then asks her to act as bait, distracting the giant dragon until his final plan is ready. Hyona charges bravely at the fire dragon to fulfill her role as bait in the battle. She activates her special sword ability, channeling all the energy from the new magic ring she received. The warrior performs the dance of flames, creating a brilliant vortex of fire and energy around the monster. Hyona is astonished to notice that her power is on a whole different level and that her mana is barely draining. She praises the magic tool but knows she can't fight forever without the city being totally destroyed for good. Suddenly, the dragon opens its glowing maw and prepares to fire a breath weapon at point-blank range at the warrior. With no time to dodge the terrifying attack, the redhead panics, fearing the worst is to come. At that exact moment, a mysterious steel cable quickly wraps around a stone beam in the area. The monster's blast of flames is deflected into the sky, causing an immense explosion in the clouds above them. The fire dragon itself opens its eyes wide in surprise upon feeling that it is losing control of its body. From above, the hero uses his incredible physical strength to pull the chains and disrupt the beast's balance. Hyona watches in surprise as the imposing warrior manipulates the situation, moving the giant dragon with his bare hands. She remembers Ray saying he would use the barrier against the dragon, and wonders what he is actually planning. The redhead still tries to figure out how he intends to move a colossal creature of that size with sheer brute force. Ray had silently revealed that he intended to blow up the entire monster along with its powerful protective barrier. He remembers that physical strikes don't cause damage, but claims to have discovered a crucial secret about the barrier. The young man noticed that the dragon's mana shield cannot completely absorb the kinetic impact of attacks. The warrior admits that makes perfect sense, but she still worries greatly about the creature's colossal size. She remains intrigued, trying to decipher exactly how he intends to pull off that impossible feat. Back in the present, the furious dragon roars again, gathering glowing spheres of flames in its mouth. Ray leaps nimbly through the fire blasts, crossing the battlefield with extreme precision and speed. With total coldness and tranquility, the hero states that his plan is actually extremely simple to execute. He compares the beast to a bird in a cage and says that if the bird won't leave on its own, the young man drops from the sky, delivering an overwhelming kick that shoves the entire cage with the monster trapped inside. The immense fire dragon is hurled backward, colliding violently against several of the city's buildings. Ray runs swiftly, saying in a triumphant tone that all he needed to do was simply move the cage. With a shout of fury, the hero channels all his magic power, concentrating it into his arm for the final attack. He delivers a colossal punch of energy directly against the protective shield, generating an immense rumble of power. The brutal impact launches the gigantic creature through the air toward the sky, completely removing the threat from the ground. The colossal dragon is thrown so high that it ends up vanishing completely into the dark night clouds. On the ground, Hyona watches it all in complete silence, barely able to believe that he actually isolated the monster. While falling back down, the protagonist prepares to use his alchemy and magic fabrication skills. He activates his special magic tool creation ability to prepare his most powerful trump card. In the middle of the night sky, a colossal flying fortress begins to materialize before his glowing eyes. The mythical floating structure reflects the image of the terrifying fire dragon, whose true name is Zarixale. From the top of the structure, Ray faces down the gigantic beast and warns that this will be the stage for their final confrontation. The hero uses the mythic item Riot Burger to charge his magic puppet body to its absolute full potential. He focuses on his current body, which possesses 10 times more mana than he had during his past peak in the kingdom. The hero begins concentrating all the energy into a single point, saying that not even a malicious dragon will withstand it. Suddenly, electrical sparks of mana begin tearing through the young man's clothes due to the immense amount of energy. He looks indifferently at his completely scorched arm and notes that his mana circuits have burned out. Magical circuits function like blood vessels in the body, distributing energy throughout the entire structure. The sudden and massive surge of mana triggered by the circular ring was greater than his channels could handle. A human brain has natural limiters, but that magic puppet body has no safety locks to hold back that much mana. Ray mentally concludes that there are definitely still many areas to be improved in his body's design. The imposing floating fortress glows high in the night sky as the decisive battle is about to begin. Back on the ground, Hyona looks open-mouthed at that gigantic structure and wonders who the young man truly is. The hero suddenly appears walking up behind her, and Hyona celebrates in relief upon seeing that he is still alive. The warrior points worriedly at his burned arm, and the young man simply responds that he suffered a slight recoil. Ray warns that he is going to need her up there, calling upon her strategic mind and sharp blade for the fight. Hyona looks at the immense flying fortress, and Ray confirms with seriousness that their destination is exactly up there. The young man states with total determination that they are going to defeat the terrifying dragon Zarixale in that place once and for all. The colossal monster roars furiously upon finding itself cornered in the floating arena created by the hero. Ray charges at high speed toward the dragon, launching another deadly offensive in the middle of the arena. The redhead teases, asking if he's excited, and Ray fires back, saying she's just scared of the altitude. The fire dragon unleashes a relentless rain of flaming spheres in the direction of the two warriors. Hyona complains that its attacks have gotten even worse, and Ray calmly says they just need to dodge everything. She panics, asking how they are supposed to defeat a creature so unfair and monstrous. Ray tells her to stay calm and explains that the beast's body structure is identical to the ordinary dragons she usually hunts. She grasps the situation and deduces that in this case, the vulnerable spot must be the moment the beast roars. Dragons have a flame sac in their throat where they gather mana before unleashing a destructive roar. She explains that when all that mana concentrates in the monster's throat, a temporary weak point opens up. At that exact moment, the mana barrier becomes extremely thin and vulnerable around the creature's neck. Ray warns that mana is fluid, but guarantees he has the perfect device to track that opening in the barrier. The redhead accepts the idea but questions how he intends to strike the weak point with his arm so badly injured. The young man gives a slight smile and reveals, much to her surprise, that he won't be the one delivering the final devastating blow. The dragon fires an overwhelming breath that explodes the stone debris around them with a deafening impact. While running away, Hyona complains, saying she doesn't have the same destructive power as him to pierce the dragon's barrier. Ray walks with absolute tranquility and guarantees with absolute certainty that she is perfectly capable of doing it. The young man turns around with a confident look, revealing that she is the only person there, with the necessary trump card. He is referring to her ultimate move, which was far too dangerous to be used inside the busy streets of the capital. The memory of her immense stone golem crushing everything flashes to illustrate the young woman's true destructive force. She realizes that he really investigated her, but says her strength doesn't come anywhere near his mystical abilities. Ray says that doesn't matter, and warns that the mystical ring will awaken the true power of her legendary magic sword. She gives an intrigued smile, seeing that he also knows the secrets of her sword, and asks who he really is. The protagonist responds humbly, saying he is just a rookie adventurer who happens to know a lot about tools. Ray declares that the talking is over, and that the time has come to launch their coordinated attack against the terrifying dragon. The immense dragon roars furiously, firing multiple simultaneous flaming blasts across the battlefield. Several colossal explosions devastate the floating arena, sending giant chunks of stone flying everywhere. The hero leaks nimbly, summoning a beautiful bluish magic shield to defend himself from the creature's overwhelming fire. He cracks the shield in the process and yells out Hyona's name, calling on his ally to take action immediately in the fight. The redhead replies that she already knows what to do and charges forward, stepping firmly onto the water while focusing all her mana. She runs swiftly, joking that he loves making her work to her absolute limit, but stays focused on fulfilling her role as bait. The colossal fire dragon opens its great jaws, entirely focused on destroying the intruder charging toward it. The warrior channels an immense amount of magical flames directly into her combat boots on the battlefield. She executes her special flame step technique, projecting a wave of fiery slashes toward the dragon. With absurdly fast movements, the warrior launches herself through the air like a true glowing comet of flames. Her magical slashes accurately strike the dragon's body, completely diverting the monster's attention from its real target. She backs away, shouting Ray's name to signal that she carried out the plan to distract the beast perfectly. From above, the protagonist charges a beautiful sphere of glowing blue energy in his hand to locate the weakness. Ray activates his magical detection sonar, sending out a powerful wave capable of tracking the opponent's entire mana flow. Ray remembers his fallen former companions and feels that deep sense of confidence in battle once again. The young man reflects with absolute determination that when someone places their faith in you, the only option is to deliver results. The fire dragon's immense golden gaze flashes intensely as it focuses on the opponent right in front of it in the arena. The monstrous creature opens its maw of sharp teeth, gathering more flaming spheres to blast him. Hyona watches from afar, her heart in her throat, terrified to see the young man completely vulnerable in the beast's crosshairs. A succession of colossal detonations shakes the floating structure, covering the entire scene in smoke and debris. However, the magical detection device keeps floating, glowing in the sky right above the fire dragon's head. The hero emerges imposingly amidst the fire and coldly demands that the beast show its full strength in the fight. With a sharp gaze, Ray points his magic ring and declares that he has finally located the dragon's true weak point. The hero's device begins scanning the dragon's entire body, mapping the flow of magic energy in real time. The monster infuriates, opening its maw of sharp teeth to unleash one of its most devastating attacks of the fight. The sensor displays a brilliant blue point of light on the dragon's neck, finally revealing where the vulnerable spot opened up. Hyona charges forward with her magic sword, activating her legendary dance of flames to kick off the final attack of the fight. A brilliant and colossal detonation consumes the scene, enveloping the dragon in an immense and destructive wave of heat. Ray watches with admiration and explains that this is actually the strongest secret technique of the warrior Hyona Carmine. She holds the absolute legendary record for dragon hunting in the kingdom and concentrates her entire strength into her sword art. The redhead fires her firebird technique directly against the throat of the fire dragon, which roars in fright. The energy strike hits the weak point dead on, triggering an immense explosion of dust and shrapnel across the scene. Hyona floats wearily in the air and celebrates with great relief, believing they have finally managed to defeat the beast. However, the fire dragon resurfaces in pure rage, firing a deadly red beam toward the two heroes. The warrior falls into complete shock upon realizing that the giant monster withstood her most powerful strike. Suddenly, a barrier of energy blocks the destructive beam from striking the redhead at the absolute last millisecond. Rei appears protectively by her side and warns with a slight smile that the dragon's annoying barrier is gone for good. A legendary sword emerges enveloped in a vortex of brilliant light, ready to be used as the ultimate weapon in the fight. The young warrior joins her and declares with absolute determination that now it's their turn to attack together.